Chapter 582. The gun was called Proud World, an ace-calibrated pistol produced in Russia. Proud World was originally the standard gun for members of the Russian royal family. Later, when the royal family suffered a disaster, the technology to make Proud World pistols also spread to the outside world. It became the pistol of choice for black market assassins. Every gun was handmade, precisely calibrated, and could be modified according to the customer's requirements. Of course, the price was not cheap. Each gun was worth tens of thousands of gold. They pulled off the safety of the gun and began to search for Fang Yan's body that had already become a blur. At any time, a destructive bullet could be shot out. Fang Yan was surrounded by several experts and attacked by a group of people. However, Fang Yan did not care about his surroundings. He wanted to stab Bai Xiu. He must stab Bai Xiu this time. Infinitely close. Fang Yan held the thunderclap sword and stabbed toward Bai Xiu's heart. As long as he stabbed down, Bai Xiu's heart would be pierced. Moreover, the true qi on the blade would blast his heart into a pile of unmanageable meat paste. Goodbye, Bai Xiu's lips squirmed. Although he did not make a sound, Fang Yan knew that he wanted to say this word. Goodbye? Why goodbye? Is goodbye indeed? After Fang Yan's sword slashed down, he and Bai Xiu would never meet again. But shouldn't he be the one saying this? Fang Yan was very angry and expressed his strong dissatisfaction with Bai Xiu's act of stealing his lines. When they said goodbye, their bodies were about to collide with each other. Bai Xiu's face had a smile of relief and a smile of success. I've been tricked. Fang Yan was shocked. He finally knew what was wrong. It should not be so easy. Bai Xiu's strength was not so easy to neutralize. Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword was not so easy to take away. He relied on the heart of Tai Chi and thought that he could see all the trajectories of his sword. But how could Bai Xiu be so easy to defeat? He resisted with all his might but secretly left a backup plan. It was to give Fang Yan a fatal blow at this moment. Fang Yan understood. However, it was already too late. Lightning flashed in Bai Xiu's hand. It turned out that Bai Xiu had purposely let Fang Yan snatch the thunderclap sword, and used his palm to receive the sword qi contained within the thunderclap sword. Fang Yan manipulated the white lightning and fiercely stabbed towards Fang Yan's chest. The sound of the sword qi cutting through flesh could be heard. There was also the smell of burning clothes and the smell of oil after the flesh was cooked. When Bai Xiu stabbed the entire lightsaber into Fang Yan's chest, their bodies quickly overlapped and collided heavily. Bang! Just as Fang Yan's body was about to be sent flying, Bai Xiu pulled him back. Fang Yan endured the pain in his chest and wanted to stab the thunderclap sword into Bai Xiu's body according to his original plan. Whoosh! Bai Xiu flicked his wrist and the thunderclap sword leaped into his hand as if it had a life of its own. Fang Yan's strength had been greatly reduced in the battle with martial fanatic, and he had also repeatedly fought with sword monarch Kong Zhu and the others. His spirit had been greatly reduced and he had not recovered until now. In terms of strength, he was no match for Bai Xiu at his peak. Whoosh! Bai Xiu flicked his wrist and drew out 7 fiery red sword flowers. The 7 sword flowers flickered with dazzling light, illuminating the faces of the people around them of all shapes and sizes. 7 flowers with 1 sword, a sword Dao Grandmaster. Bai Xiu is so young, yet he already has the cultivation of a sword Dao Grandmaster. The gray-robed man in the distance was full of amazement. With an appreciative smile, he said, "From this, it can be seen that he is indeed extremely talented in sword Dao. A great teacher produces a great disciple. A disciple taught by a teacher naturally won't be too bad." For some reason, seeing Bai Xiu trick Fang Yan and stab the thunderclap sword into Fang Yan's body, martial fanatic felt very uncomfortable. It was as if the sword had been stabbed into his body. Although at the very beginning he was the primer in this sure-kill situation, the most crucial figure. Just now, in order to complete the mission, he had battled with Fang Yan at the top of 1 sword peak, exhausting a lot of Fang Yan's energy. However, this did not hinder his appreciation and love for Fang Yan. If the two of them fought fairly, I don't think Fang Yan would lose. I had already used up 60 to 70% of Fang Yan's strength. After that, he was besieged by several experts and betrayed by his former lover. His body and morale were at their lowest. Otherwise, just the Taiji light he displayed earlier would be enough to beat Bai Xiu into a pile of dog shit. You should know that the Taiji light is rare for hundreds of years, but in the past 100 years Bai Xiu was not the only one to use the thunderclap sword well. Even teacher is better than him, The gray-robed man heard the contempt in martial fanatic's words and said with a smile, "Why? Do you want to stand up for that kid?" "I still feel that it's unfair." "Fair? Is there such a thing as fairness in this world? I taught you the fairy scattering flowers, but I didn't teach it to anyone else. Isn't this unfair to others? Also, you guys underestimate Bai Xiu's ability to hide and endure. The focus of the thunderclap sword is not the sword but the thunder. The lightning after the thunder. In the fight just now, Fang Yan was not prepared for this move. It can be seen that Bai Xiu had never used it when fighting others. Or rather, all the opponents who saw him using the sword were killed by him. Is a young man who is brave, cunning, and able to keep a low profile not worthy of our nurturing and love? The gray-robed man glanced at martial fanatic and said, "I understand how you feel. It is indeed a little sad to witness the fall of a heaven's favorite. But we have long let go of matters of life and death. Advancing in the path of martial arts, stepping into another world, this is what we seek. Knowing the truth in the morning, one can die without regrets. Furthermore, the winner is the king, the loser is the bandit. Today's outcome has already been decided. There is nothing to be regretful about." Fang Yan was a genius. However, in this battle against Bai Xiu, he was ultimately killed by the other party. He is not as good as Bai Xiu. Why? Martial fanatic was unwilling to accept this. What happened back then? Why did you have to go this far? Not only what happened back then but also what's happening now. The gray-robed man coldly laughed. Who told him to be a member of the Fang clan? Who told him to be Mo Qingdi's disciple? Who told him to be Fang Yan? I'm just afraid it's too much. Martial fanatic sighed. Fang Yan was stabbed in the chest, spitting out blood. That sword had pierced through his body, and it had also drained the strength from his body. His body softly leaned against Bai Xiu's chest. The two of them were like a couple snuggling up to each other. Bai Xiu raised his wrist. The thunderclap sword in his hand was about to stab into Fang Yan's back. Sha! The clear sound of flesh being cut was heard. Blood splattered everywhere. It splashed onto Fang Yan's face as well as Bai Xiu's face. Bai Xiu was a bit unruly, but this time he didn't dodge. Bai Xiu's sword stabbed halfway, only leaving a small tip. Bai Xiu wanted to exert more force but couldn't stab any further. "Why are you doing this?" Bai Xiu asked with a sorrowful expression. "You know what you're doing. You're making things very difficult for me." "Don't kill him." Phoenix's voice was firm. "If you want to kill me." Phoenix used her arm to block the tip of the sword. Her right arm was pierced through by the thunderclap sword. Bai Xiu held the thunderclap sword's hilt in his hand. The tip of the sword pierced through Phoenix's arm. The sharp silver tip glinted coldly. Blood dripped along the lines of the blade. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. Finally, the blood dripped faster and faster, forming a thin red spring. The spring of blood flowed from Fang Yan's back. All of the blood from Phoenix's body dripped onto Fang Yan's body, soaking his clothes, and finally merging with Fang Yan's body. And Xiao, Bai Xiu's handsome face twitched slightly, his voice sorrowful. "This is a war." "I know this is a war." Phoenix's face had a sorrowful smile. "You won. You are the victor of this war, so I can only ask you, please don't kill him." "That's impossible." Bai Xiu wanted to press the sword in his hand down. Phoenix took a step forward, pressing her back against Fang Yan's. Then she pressed her chest against the tip of the sword that had pierced through her arm. If Bai Xiu wanted to stab Fang Yan to death, he could only continue to push the sword down, continue to pierce through Phoenix's arm, pierce through Phoenix's body, and only then could the sword pierce through Fang Yan's heart from the back. Very difficult. And a very long process. The muscles on Bai Xiu's face began to twitch, his voice filled with uncontrollable rage. "And Xiao, this is your decision. You are willing to die for him?" "I didn't die for him," Phoenix said. "If you don't kill me I won't die, but if you kill me I'll die. How could you do such a thing? How could you be so selfish?" Bai Xiu's patience was extremely strong, but at this moment he was also tempted by this crazy woman, to go on a killing spree. "You know I can't kill you." "I know." Phoenix's voice was filled with apology. "So I can only beg you like this, let him go. You've already won." "That's impossible, I can't let him go." "Then just kill me," Phoenix said. She looked at the sword in Bai Xiu's hand with her eyes that were red and swollen from crying and said, You only need to gently push the thunderclap sword down, kill me and then kill him, you bitch. Bai Xiu wanted to curse, wanted to call Phoenix a bitch, but the words couldn't come out no matter how hard he tried. He had never cursed anyone. He had never cursed Phoenix. And he would never curse Phoenix. After taking a few deep breaths, he did his best to suppress the ruthlessness in his heart and coldly said, "Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? If you kill me it'll be a kind of," Phoenix said with a smile. "At least the two of us will die together, this way he won't be able to escape. When I was alive I didn't get this kind of treatment." Chapter 583. The person I love the most. Hurts me the most. I don't have the right to choose. Tightly close the door to my heart. Leaving behind a moment of tenderness. I'm afraid there's still a next life. Just like Zhang Yuxing's song, the person I love the most hurts me the most. If the person who attacked wasn't Bai Xiu, if the person begging wasn't Phoenix, how could such a painful and tangled scene have happened? Bai Xiu loved Phoenix, and it was because of this deep love that he was heartbroken by Phoenix's choice at this moment. Phoenix knew that Bai Xiu loved her, and it was because she knew he loved her that she made such a crazy decision. Either release Fang Yan or kill her and Fang Yan together. Good people are human, bad people are human. Good people have feelings, bad people have feelings. Good people will be sad, bad people will be sad. At this moment, how cruel was this for Bai Xiu? Bai Xiu raised his sword, but he couldn't stab it down. Using the thunderclap sword to pierce the chest of the girl he liked. If he did such a thing, he would probably never be able to forgive himself. It would become a demon in his heart, and he would never be able to make any progress on the path of martial arts for the rest of his life. Letting Fang Yan go and helping Phoenix was equivalent to failing the mission. However, to kill Fang Yan he had to kill Phoenix first, and Bai Xiu wasn't willing to bear such a result. With no choice, Bai Xiu was faced with a dilemma. The situation changed in an instant, blinding the old eyes of Kongzhu, Xiaomu and the others. While Fang Yan and Bai Xiu were fighting fiercely, Kongzhu used his King of Hell palm. The shadows of the palms flickered and a cold wind blew. He struck out 81 palms in a row, each one aimed at vital acupoints on Fang Yan's body. However, before his palms could touch Fang Yan's body, Fang Yan was already lying in Bai Xiu's body. This was the difference in realm. Fang Yan and Bai Xiu exchanged a few quick blows. When Bai Xiu delivered the thunderclap sword to Fang Yan's hand and received the thunderclap sword energy that pierced through Fang Yan's body, Diabolo's move had just begun to show its power. In other words, Fang Yan and Bai Xiu's speed were several times faster than the others. Others could strike 3 times in a second, but the two of them could strike 30 times. However, when they hit the spot where Fang Yan was standing, all they could hurt was an afterimage. Xiaomu's Arhat subduing demon fist also struck out at the same time. Fiery red clouds tore through the space, burning the air until it sizzled. The 18 chess pieces kept changing shapes in the air and finally turned into a pair of flying wings. Their wings flapped towards Fang Yan's Tianhai, Qitu, Lingshu Yuhai and other major acupuncture points. But by the time they landed, Fang Yan's body had already changed countless times. The chess piece would cut through the air and hit a tree trunk or a rock. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The chess piece passed through the tree trunk and continued to fly, disappearing into the rock. Everything was settled. When the two men in black caught Fang Yan's body with their proud spears and aimed at Fang Yan's head, Fang Yan had already collapsed weakly on top of Bai Xiu's body. The proud spears didn't fire any bullets. In the eyes of the two big men in black, Fang Yan had completely lost the ability to fight. There was no point in firing any more bullets. Moreover, the proud spear's bullets had extremely strong piercing abilities. If they pierced through Fang Yan's head, it would be a matter of course. If they accidentally pierced through Bai Xiu's body as well, then they would have to bear the consequences when they returned. The two men in black looked at each other and put away the proud spears in their hands. Obviously, Bai Xiu had already taken control of the situation. What they needed to do was to witness Bai Xiu's victory. They were also a little stunned in their hearts. They didn't expect Bai Xiu, this pretty boy, to be so skilled. They were all hardcore confidants of Jiang Junling and knew that Jiang Junling usually thought highly of himself and rarely really paid attention to anyone. When they saw Jiang Junling treat Bai Xiu with great courtesy, they were still a little unconvinced. They felt that the young master was being unfair to them. From the looks of it, the general's order was still very meaningful. Kongzhu stopped moving and didn't attack Fang Yan for no reason. Although Xiaomu was full of unwillingness, he could only vent his anger on the rocks and trees under his feet. One of the old men in black robes put away his copper plate, and the other old man in black robes also stopped waving his chess pieces that could take someone's life. Everyone stopped and waited for Bai Xiu to end this battle. Everything would be over with just a light strike of the sword. Bai Xiu was the final victor, and this glory belonged to him alone. For Bai Xiu, this test had only just begun. He couldn't stab that sword. He could kill Fang Yan, but he couldn't kill Phoenix, the woman he deeply loved. "This is the last time," Bai Xiu said in a low voice. "Are you going to let him go?" Phoenix asked with a face full of surprise. "This is the last time I'll allow you to use this method to force me," Bai Xiu said. "If a man wants to do something, a woman shouldn't interfere. That will make things difficult for the man. Although I like you very much, you can't use my love for you to threaten me. This makes me feel like a pitiful person." "I'm sorry," Phoenix said with teary eyes. She knew that she had let down Fang Yan and even more so Bai Xiu. Her choice had hurt two people at the same time, one to the point of death and the other to a life worse than death. "See, you're saying sorry again," Bai Xiu smiled bitterly. "Looks like you want to do something that will let me down again." As Bai Xiu spoke, he suddenly pulled out the long sword in his hand. Whoosh! The long sword brought out a flower of blood. The hole in Phoenix's arm was no longer blocked, and blood gushed out even more wildly. The blood splattered, staining Bai Xiu's clothes and Fang Yan's pale cheeks. Because of the excessive blood loss, Phoenix's body was getting weaker and weaker. When the long sword was pulled out of her arm, it also drained the remaining strength in her body. Her knees gave way and she almost fell to the ground. But she held on. Fang Yan was not out of danger and Fang Yan's life was still uncertain, so she couldn't faint and definitely couldn't die. "Bai Xiu," Phoenix panicked. "Don't." Bai Xiu pulled out the long sword and had the chance to stab Fang Yan again. She couldn't let Bai Xiu hurt Fang Yan, she couldn't let Bai Xiu stab Fang Yan to death. Phoenix's arm was in so much pain that she couldn't lift it, so she could only use her body, her full chest, to take the initiative to receive Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword. If thunderclap was stained with her blood, Bai Xiu wouldn't be able to let it drink Fang Yan's blood, right? At least she created a chance for Fang Yan. Fang Yan's body leaned weakly against Bai Xiu's chest, and it was precisely because of this that he could still stand after enduring Bai Xiu's murderous sword aura. Fang Yan's eyes were tightly shut, and the strength in his body had been drained. Consecutive battles, one conspiracy after another, had exhausted him both physically and mentally. What Bai Xiu stabbed into Fang Yan's body wasn't a long sword, but a sword aura that carried the power of thunder and lightning. The sword aura exploded inside his body, and his 5 viscera and 6 bowels and other vital organs were seriously damaged. His eyes were drowsy. He opened them again and again and then closed them again and again. If he could die like this, it would be a kind of release. However, Fang Yan couldn't die. Although his body had no strength, although he couldn't open his eyes, his mind was still clear. He knew what was happening outside and he could clearly hear the conversation between Bai Xiu and Phoenix, because he was so close to them, lying in Bai Xiu's arms and then back to back with Phoenix. Their bodies were so close but their hearts were so far apart. That idiot woman, that stupid woman, that selfish and unafraid of death, that cunning woman who was brave enough to sacrifice herself, that woman whom he hated to the bone, that unforgettable first love. This was a war, but she chose him at the end of it. She put her back to him, used his arm to block Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword and said, "If you kill me, it will be a kind of help." She wanted to die with him and she was willing to die with him. But why? Because of love? If it was because of love, why wasn't she willing to accept his feelings in the beginning? If it was because of love, why didn't she warn him in advance? If it was because of love, why did she participate in this sure-kill situation? Did she know that her appearance had already killed him once? It should be because of love. If not, why would she do such a thing to protect him? It should be love, right? If it wasn't love, why would she accompany an insignificant person to die? She loved me. Until now, Fang Yan couldn't believe this fact. Bai Xiu, let Fang Yan go, let Fang Yan go, Phoenix cried bitterly. This time I'm sorry, I'm willing to use everything I have to make it up to you. Don't you want to marry me? Let's go back and get married, find a place with no one and live in seclusion. If you like Swallow Fort, we'll live in Swallow Fort for the rest of our lives and never come out again. Bai Xiu, let's not get involved in these things, let's go together. You stupid woman, what kind of phoenix are you? You're just a stupid bird. What right do you have to use my things to make a deal with me? Don't you know, the more you act like this, the more I want to kill him. Bai Xiu's expression became even more ferocious as he fiercely said, I just said that was the last time I'll allow you to use such a method to force me. As Bai Xiu spoke, he suddenly thrust his sword towards Fang Yan's back. Phoenix didn't hesitate and forcefully thrust her chest forward. Bai Xiu's eyes turned cold. The sword in his hand didn't show any signs of stopping, but instead sped up again, stabbing towards Phoenix's chest. He wanted to pierce Phoenix with one strike. Then he would stab Fang Yan behind Phoenix to death. One sword, two birds. Two stupid birds. Chapter 584. When the Snake Lord opened his eyes, the world in front of him was dark. It was a moonless night. Even the farthest star in the sky was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps it couldn't bear to see the tragedies in this world, so it closed its eyes early to rest? The Snake Lord struggled, wanting to move his hands and feet, but he couldn't move his hands, nor could he move his feet. His body was poisoned, and it was a poison that he couldn't cure. How could the Snake Lord be poisoned? What a joke. Of course, the Snake Lord didn't laugh. He wanted to cry. He couldn't understand why his sister would treat him like this. Also, was that girl really his sister? The sister who wholeheartedly attached herself to him and took care of him? The sister who blinked her big eyes and said, Big brother, it's time to eat. Just as he was thinking about this, a pair of bright eyes appeared in front of him. The pair of eyes rolled around, pure and bright, seemingly without any impurities. The Snake Lord's withered yellow eyes fixed on her, looking at the pair of eyes that he remembered deeply. Yes, these were his sister's eyes. In the past he also found it very strange. He and his sister ate the same food, did the same things, and spent day and night with all kinds of poisonous snakes and animals. Why were his eyes black and yellow, and the whites of his eyes were bloodshot? They were like the eyes of a snake. But his sister's eyes were black and white. Her pupils were as black as ink, and the whites of her eyes were as white as the first snow. He could accept that the heavens were unfair to him. Even Mother Nature was so biased that it made people feel bitterly disappointed. The Snake Lord also wanted to be a quiet, handsome man. The Snake Lord opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Do you want to talk? The owner of the eyes asked. The Snake Lord didn't answer. He didn't need to answer such a question. The poison you were poisoned with is called red eccentric. It's made from the gallbladder of a red eccentric. The owner of the eyes explained softly, You told me about this poison. You should have felt it. After being poisoned by red eccentric, your whole body is paralyzed like a vegetable. Except for the brain, the rest of your body can't move, including your eyes. The Snake Lord's eyes were still staring at his sister, staring at the family that he missed day and night. The owner of the eyes looked at him for a while, sighed softly and said, I know what you want to say. There was anger in the Snake Lord's eyes. He wanted to make the corners of his mouth twitch to express his disdain. However, he couldn't even do such a trivial action. How could she know what he wanted to say? Even he didn't know what he would say, so how could she know? Could she understand the pain and helplessness of watching one's only family being kidnapped and ordered around by others? Could she understand the indignation and humiliation of begging for a trade when one's life was about to end after failing a mission? Could she understand the cruelty and yearning of crying and begging her opponent to take her snake's eye and turn her into a snake slave without freedom and soul? The king of the snake species was still a king. Which king was not proud? I sacrificed everything and sold myself as a slave because I was concerned about your safety and longed for your gentleness. I wanted to live to see you one last time. Do you know all this? If you knew, why did you kill your brother when you met him again? I have raised countless snakes and developed countless poisons. I often test the poisons on my own body, but have I ever hurt you? It was as red as blood, and his heart was also bleeding. The Snake Lord felt sad and his heart was throbbing with pain. Although many people thought that they had no heart. The owner of the eyes saw the change in the Snake Lord's eyes and said, I know you are angry and I am angry with myself. I shouldn't have done this. I should have told you in advance, but I was worried that you wouldn't listen to me. I had no other choice. No other choice. These 4 words were so heartless, shameless, and irresponsible. Just because you said, no other choice, You poisoned your brother? When you were kidnapped, I had better choices such as running away or hiding in the mountains, but I chose to listen to their orders and became a cruel killer. When I was defeated, I could choose to die or jump into the river, but I chose to sacrifice my eyes and become a snake slave. Slave. It was an insult to the snake monarch race that the snake monarch race was reduced to such a title. But he did it without hesitation. I can say that I had no other choice, but did I say that? You know, our natural enemies are those snake catchers, the owner of the eyes continued. I was hunted by the snake catchers. They should have dug out my eyes, but they didn't do that. They could have destroyed me, but they didn't. They trusted me and gave me freedom. The Snake Lord wanted to laugh. Although he looked uglier when he laughed than when he didn't laugh. But he couldn't raise the corner of his mouth, and his face didn't show any extra expression. He was like a zombie. The only expression he could make was an expressionless face. In order to save you, I dug out my snake eyes and gave them away. Someone kidnapped you and only kept your snake eyes. Then you became someone else's loyal servant. How cruel was this world? How unfair was it? Brother, the owner of the eyes gently touched the Snake Lord's face and said, "Rest well. I won't hurt you." A single tear appeared in his eye, then slid down his cheeks. Wasn't this kind of damage considered as damage? Brother, seeing the Snake Lord's tears, the owner of the eyes finally panicked. She wiped the tears from the Snake Lord's face and said, "Brother, don't cry. I can't let you go, otherwise he'll be angry. Do you want to talk? Let me talk with you, okay?" The owner of the eyes took out a pill from her pocket. She took half of the pill and put it in the Snake Lord's mouth. "Brother, this is half of the antidote. Even if you take the antidote, you'll only recover half of your strength," the owner of the eyes warned him. "Don't even think about running away, otherwise I'll beat you down again." As soon as the antidote entered his throat, his body felt refreshed. The Snake Lord's burning body eased a bit. He could feel his eyeballs moving, then his hands and feet could move. The Snake Lord's tears flowed even faster. His voice was hoarse like sand rubbing against each other as he asked, "Why? Brother, why?" "Brother, he's the most handsome man in the world as well as the most charismatic man. He's like my brother to me." At this moment the Snake Lord's heart was dead. "That man is the most handsome man in the world, the most charismatic man in the world. That man is like my brother. Then what am I?" "Brother, don't be angry, okay? I don't want you to get hurt. I'll protect you. Once this is over, I'll take you to see him. He's a really, really good person. He'll take good care of you," the owner of the eyes spoke with concern. "When the time comes, I'll ask him to help me take back your snake's eye. He'll definitely agree. He's a very capable person. He'll never break his promise." "Kill me," the Snake Lord said. "Brother, I'll say." The Snake Lord gathered all his strength and roared at the owner of the eyes, "Kill me." At this moment his heart was dead. It's said that when a person is close to death, they'll experience a moment of lucidity before death. Fang Yan felt like he was about to die, because his body's current condition was very strange. When Bai Xiu stabbed his chest with the thunderclap sword chi, his Tai Chi heart suddenly stopped, and the Tai Chi domain also disappeared. It was like when you were driving but the car ran out of gas. It was like when you were watching TV but the electricity went out in your house. This was the same situation as 3 years ago. The Tai Chi heart once again became a dead fetus. Ever since he comprehended the Tai Chi heart, it had become a part of Fang Yan's body. For him, the Tai Chi heart was one of the most important organs in his body, second only to the vital organ between his legs. However, now that this important part had disappeared, it was as if the body had suddenly lost its limbs, which was hard to accept. "Maybe I'm really going to die," Fang Yan dejectedly thought. The elders of Swallow Dock were right. I'm still not as good as Bai Xiu. While Fang Yan was in complete despair, the Tai Chi heart once again spun. When the Tai Chi heart died, the extreme yang energy quickly decreased and disappeared. The core of the Tai Chi heart lost its ability to resist, and the vicious and violent energy that had gathered around the Tai Chi heart in the past instantly filled the core. The Tai Chi heart spun again, and it was even more violent than before. It was like a tank without brakes, more like a plane that had lost control. Rumble. They whooshed, carrying a faint crimson glow. Fang Yan could clearly see that his Tai Chi heart had turned black. A black Tai Chi heart. This was the first time Fang Yan saw it. And the first time he knew of its existence. Black Tai Chi. Whoosh. The sword in Bai Xiu's hand stabbed straight at Phoenix's chest. Stabbed at her heart. Help her, let her die together with the person she loved. Fang Yan. Phoenix closed her eyes in despair, subconsciously calling out Fang Yan's name. She knew that she was really going to die. There was a smile of relief on her face. The feeling of death was really good. Whoosh! Bai Xiu's sword pierced through Phoenix's chest. Chapter 585. I'm sorry, Bai Xiu said these 3 words in his heart. He didn't like Phoenix saying these 3 words to him because when Phoenix said sorry, she would really do something that would let him down. He also had to say sorry, and he also had to do something that would let Phoenix down, so he said, I'm sorry. Bai Xiu closed his eyes in pain. Phoenix and Fang Yan were childhood sweethearts, so how could he and Phoenix not be childhood sweethearts? Although Phoenix and Fang Yan spent more time together when they were young, Phoenix spent more time with him after becoming sensible. After becoming his girlfriend, the time she spent with Fang Yan could be counted on one hand. Bai Xiu was a smart person. He understood Phoenix's thoughts and the meaning of her childish actions. But he also knew that Phoenix would eventually get together with him. They would get married, have children, and become lovers for life. In television dramas, when the female lead was molested by a bad guy, she would often shout, "Even if you have my body, don't even think about getting my heart." Bai Xiu always felt that there was something wrong with this line. I love your body, where is your heart? Although it was a little unpleasant, as long as you have me it's fine. When your body has become mine, will your heart still be far away from me? Bai Xiu had confidence in himself. If Fang Yan died, all problems would no longer be problems. Phoenix would be sad for a while, but she would still hold his arm and walk into the wedding hall. However, the Phoenix's final decision disappointed him and made him feel despair. Bai Xiu was very sad. He felt that he was even sadder than Fang Yan. Compared to Bai Xiu, Fang Yan's sadness couldn't be considered sadness at all. At most, it could be considered as a kidney injury. If this sword fell, Fang Yan would die and so would Phoenix. Bai Xiu believed in the sword in his hand. His thunderclap sword rarely appeared, and when it did, it never missed. Swish! Bai Xiu suddenly opened his eyes. Something was wrong. He saw his sword pierce Phoenix's chest with his own eyes, but he didn't hear the familiar sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh. His sword was fast enough and Phoenix's flesh was tender enough. If the thunderclap sword cut through flesh, it would be a clean and crisp sound of paper cutting. Crack. The sword went straight to the top, clean and neat without any sloppiness. Swoosh! Was the sound of an empty net. It was the sound of an empty net without a single fish being caught. It was the sound of a knife cutting through the air. The Phoenix had disappeared. Fang Yan had also disappeared. Bai Xiu broke out in cold sweat from shock. How could Fang Yan disappear? How could Fang Yan disappear? Just now, Bai Xiu's ingenious plan had deliberately allowed Fang Yan to snatch the thunderclap sword away, while he himself had hidden the sword chi of the thunderclap sword and stabbed it towards Fang Yan's abdomen. That sword strike was enough to take his life. Even if Fang Yan was not dead yet, it was impossible for him to escape and counterattack. What exactly happened? Not only did Fang Yan turn pale with fright, but the others were also panicking as they searched for traces of Fang Yan. Their target this time was Fang Yan, and their mission was to kill Fang Yan. If Fang Yan escaped, their mission would be declared a failure, and they would have to face endless revenge from Fang Yan in the future. Of course, they were not afraid of Fang Yan's revenge at all. At most, they would just wrap him up like a dumpling again. But who would want to do the same thing twice? Where is he? Where is he? Xiao Mu roared angrily and punched a large rock that could be hiding nearby. Crack! The large rock was hit by the fiery red shadow of the fist and broke into 2 from the middle. Kongzhu did not yell at his brother, and he also continuously punched the dense thicket. Crack, crack, crack. Grass and trees flew everywhere, and the sound of branches and grass breaking could be heard continuously. There was also the smell of grass spreading through the night wind, and it was a rich fragrance that entered the nose. Everyone split up and search. The man in black once again took out the Proud World mobile phone from his pocket. Originally, they thought that they no longer needed guns, but looking at the current situation, the Proud World still had a chance to display its great strength. They did not feel too angry about Fang Yan's disappearance, but instead felt a tinge of joy. They had come to surround Fang Yan, but Bai Xiu alone had taken all the credit. Now that Bai Xiu had made a mistake and Fang Yan had disappeared, if Fang Yan could fall under the muzzle of their Proud World gun, it would be the most beneficial for them. Where there were people there would be Jianghu, and where there was Jianghu there would be fights. The small team of a few people besieging them all had their own thoughts. The two old men who were practicing silent meditation were calm. After scanning the night sky, their eyes stopped on a slightly protruding rock. Whoosh, a piercingly cold gust of wind swept past, and a black figure appeared on the protruding rock. Though there were two. Because Fang Yan was holding the phoenix in his arms, it looked like the two of them had become one at first glance. Phoenix hugged Fang Yan's neck and looked at Fang Yan's eyes with surprise. She asked in a daze, "You're not dead." "I'm not dead," Fang Yan said. Phoenix saved Fang Yan. When Bai Xiu was about to stab Fang Yan's heart, Phoenix stepped forward and used her body to block Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword. Although Bai Xiu still decided to kill Fang Yan in the end, and he even killed the phoenix that was blocking his way, the phoenix bought time for Fang Yan, bought the most precious time. When Fang Yan's life was on the line, Fang Yan's Taiji heart's righteousness was reduced to 0, and the hostility and anger beside it poured in. These gases drove the core of the Taiji heart to spin again. However, this time the Taiji heart was no longer white or green but black. It was pitch black, so black that it was like the night, like a black eyeball. The black gas saved the Taiji heart, reviving it again. After reviving, the spinning Taiji heart once again produced righteousness and yang energy. These righteousness and yang energy began to repel the hostility and anger. They were natural enemies that would not rest until one side was dead. The two sides fought, you attack, I defend, and in the end it turned into a situation of black and white defending one side. Half black and half white, it looked like a Taiji diagram. When Fang Yan first started cultivating, his grandfather Fang Hui gave him a Taiji diagram. Fang Yan felt that this gift was too common and he was a bit unhappy. He even pulled his grandfather's hand and asked if he could change it. Fang Hui laughed and said to Fang Yan, "The Taiji diagram is ever-changing and unfathomable. 20 years ago I thought I understood it. 20 years later I found that I couldn't understand it. Now I can only see the black and white Taiji fish. You should take a closer look and see what you can see." Fang Yan took the Taiji diagram and looked at it. He could only see the black and white arcs on the Taiji diagram. The circle of the Taiji diagram represented 1, the universe, and Wuji. Taiji was limited heaven and Wuji was infinite heaven. Taiji was existence and Wuji was nothingness. Taiji was 3 and Wuji was 1. The black and white colors of the diagram represented yin and yang and heaven and earth. The boundary between black and white was the human division that divided the world of yin and yang. The black dot in the white represented yin and yang, and the white dot in the black represented yang and yin. The Taiji fish, 1 black and 1 white, 1 yin and 1 yang. Yin gave birth to yang and yang gave birth to yin. Yin and yang restrained each other and yin and yang gave birth to each other. Endless growth. A jar of water was half drunk and there was only half left. A bag of rice was eaten by 5 kilograms and it was naturally 10 years less. The same was true for the strength of the body. However, because Taiji and yin and yang gave birth to each other, Fang Yan's body was instantly filled with strength. Every time someone threw a punch, they would use up a punch's strength. However, with the eternal vitality, every time you threw a punch, the strength of your punch would be instantly replenished by the heart of Taiji. The strength of your body would never be exhausted. Fang Yan also saved Phoenix. At the most critical and dangerous moment, just as Bai Xiu's sword was about to pierce through her chest, Fang Yan moved like lightning, hugging Phoenix and escaping from the battle. Phoenix was injured. Although Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword hadn't pierced into Phoenix's flesh, the thunderclap sword, which was held by Bai Xiu, had already cut through Phoenix's clothes and left a deep wound on her chest. A long and thin hole had appeared on Phoenix's chest, and fresh blood was spurting out of the hole. Phoenix's black night clothes had turned brownish red, wet and sticking to her flesh. Because the hole was too big, even the bra strap connecting the two pieces of her underwear had been cut. A large piece of snow-white skin was exposed to the air, and 2 lumps of pink flesh were faintly discernible in front of Fang Yan's eyes. Phoenix's body was exhausted and her life was in danger. However, when she landed, no, she hadn't landed, her body was still in Fang Yan's embrace. The moment she escaped danger, she asked Fang Yan with a face full of surprise, "You didn't die?" At that time she didn't even know if she was dead or alive. Fang Yan looked at the wound on Phoenix's chest and frowned, saying, "I didn't die. Not only will I not die, I will also live well, very well. As Fang Yan spoke, the hand supporting Phoenix's back was transferring Taiji energy into her body, which could extend her life force and help her quickly recover her strength. His other hand fumbled in his robe and he took out a small black bottle from his pocket. With a flick of his finger, the cap of the small bottle flew out. Then he poured all the medicinal foam in the small black bottle onto Phoenix's wound, layer after layer. His voice was calm but with a hint of killing intent, and he said with a smile, "Those who want me dead, I will make them die a horrible death." Chapter 586. Fang Yan glanced at Bai Xiu, Kongzhu and the others and said, "What you owe me, I will take it all back with interest. Who wouldn't be stabbed in the Jianghu? You can't always be stabbed in the Jianghu." Fang Yan had just been stabbed and now he wanted to stab others a few times. Of course, Fang Yan was not a reckless idiot who sought death. Every word he said was carefully thought out. For example, when he said, "Those who want me dead, I will make them die a horrible death," he had already secretly checked his body and secretly tried to circulate his qi several times. He felt the abnormality of his body and knew that he was full of vitality and strength. The heart of Tai Chi rotated more smoothly than before, but it was also more majestic. Yin and Yang coexisted, which was Tai Chi if there was only Yin without Yang, or if there was only Yang without Yin, it could not be considered as comprehending the true meaning of Tai Chi. However, there were some things that could not be achieved with hard work. For example, the heart of Tai Chi naturally liked things that were clean, pure and righteous. It was a serious case of cleanliness. Therefore, the murderous aura, hostility, anger and other negative emotions could not even think of approaching it, let alone integrating with it. By chance, Fang Yan was stabbed by Bai Xiu and his life was hanging by a thread. The heart of Tai Chi also stopped rotating. Fang Yan's body was extremely weak. There was no clear and righteous energy to fill the heart of Tai Chi, and there was not enough Yang energy to drive the core to rotate. At this time, the hostility and murderous aura that had accumulated for many years took advantage of the weakness and instantly occupied the heart of Tai Chi, and led it to revive and rotate again. No one would have thought that what could not be achieved with hard work could be achieved by being beaten. If the previous Fang Yan was Iron Man who could only fight with batteries, the current Fang Yan was Ultraman who had been armed with eternal energy. Therefore, Fang Yan wanted to take revenge. Revenge on Bai Xiu, revenge on Kongzhu, revenge on Blade King, revenge on Xiumu, and revenge on all the people behind the scenes who had set up this fatal trap. He wanted to take revenge on all those who wanted to kill him. This was something he had to do, and this was something a man absolutely had to pursue. "Fang Yan, hurry up and leave," Phoenix hurriedly said. "There are too many of them and they're too powerful. The real mastermind hasn't even appeared yet. You can't defeat them. Are there more powerful people hiding inside?" Fang Yan asked. "Yes." Phoenix nodded firmly. "Fang Yan, you're no match for them. Your power alone is too weak." Fang Yan sneered and said, "If you fight, you can win. If you don't try, how do you know you can't? These people tried to kill me, I won't let them go so easily. If I don't do anything, can they still be considered men?" As Fang Yan spoke, he carried the phoenix and flew towards the foot of the mountain. His legs ran so fast that he looked like a rabbit being chased by a shotgun. Oh God, his body was flying. Everyone was dumbfounded. This kid had been yelling and screaming for half a day. He was so passionate and fearless, yet he just ran away with his butt in the air? That kid ran away. Xiumu opened his mouth wide and shouted. That kid ran away. Kongzhu roared and yelled, "Chase. We can't let him get away like this." With that, he took the lead and chased after Fang Yan's butt. Two black-clothed men held proud world pistols and fired at Fang Yan's receding figure. Each of them fired twice, but Fang Yan didn't run in a straight line. He darted left and right, up and down, looking like a mischievous ghost. "Chase." The black-clothed men held their spears and chased after Fang Yan. The two old men who practiced silent meditation were silent, but they kept watching Fang Yan's movements. When they saw Fang Yan carrying the phoenix and running away, they reacted immediately. On the other hand, Bai Xiu's reaction was slower. Bai Xiu held the thunderclap sword and stood in place. He looked in the direction of Solitary Sword Peak and sighed softly, "1 life, 2 luck, 3 feng shui. Looks like your father buried a good feng shui." Bai Xiu's long robe flapped and he dashed forward like lightning. Tonight Fang Yan must die. Fang Yan ran very fast, very fast. He knew that he was full of energy now. He felt that he could defeat several people on his own. He even felt that he could wipe out a group in one go. If he was bullied, he would immediately be bullied 10 times or 100 times more. Shouldn't a man be so ruthless and domineering? Shouldn't blood for blood and a tooth for a tooth be like this? Shouldn't he take revenge on the spot and not let the hatred linger overnight? However, Fang Huohuo was Fang Huohuo. He always knew what he wanted the most. What he wanted the most now was to survive. As long as he lived, so did the phoenix. If Fang Yan chose to stay, he would have to face Bai Xiu, who he still didn't know his limits. He would have to face the strange brothers Diablo and Xiaomu. He would have to face the pair of unfathomable old men. He would have to face the proud pistol. Most importantly, Fang Yan believed the phoenix's words. The phoenix said that the real culprit behind the scenes hadn't appeared yet. There were even more powerful experts who hadn't made a move. There were too many of them. They were too powerful. What kind of power was hidden behind the darkness? Fang Yan was a smart person. Smart to the point that he often lost his backbone. For example, at this time Fang Yan should have fought with them without fear of death. He should have killed everyone who tried to harm him. Didn't that sound like an invincible hero? However, Fang Yan ran away shamelessly. He had to run. Because he didn't know how many people were hiding in the darkness. He didn't know what kind of people were hiding in the darkness. If he could defeat those people, it would naturally be a good thing. If he couldn't defeat those people and was surrounded by them again, his backbone would turn into foolishness. Fang Yan didn't do things that he wasn't sure of. He also wouldn't risk his life. Because he knew better than anyone what the meaning of his life was and how many people had placed their hopes on it. Only living was everything. It was never too late for a vile person to take revenge. A gentleman wouldn't retreat or give way. He would test his blood on the spot. Fang Yan admitted that he was a vile person. Fang Yan. The phoenix lay in Fang Yan's arms, feeling his steady and powerful heartbeat. She let the wind howl in her ears and said, "Fang Yan, throw me away, put me down." "That's impossible," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You lied to me. I still haven't gotten my revenge. How could I let you go so easily?" "Fang Yan, you've already gotten your revenge," the phoenix said. "Even if you don't say anything or do anything, I'll still blame myself to death. They're all chasing after us. Quickly let me go, otherwise you won't be able to run away." "Who said I ran away?" Fang Yan's body jumped over a large rock that was as tall as a person and said, "I'm in a hurry to take you to the hospital, otherwise I would have already beaten them down." "When did I, Fang Yan, ever run away from someone?" "Pfft," the phoenix laughed. The laughter quickly turned into a violent moan. Because the wound on her chest was pulled, the pain made her hover between life and death. Her expression twisted. "Shameless," the phoenix coquettishly scolded, "you're still shameless." In the past, whenever Fang Yan said something witty, the phoenix would also act like this, pointing at Fang Yan's head and scolding him. "Shameless, you're still shameless." Unfortunately, that was a long time ago. Things remain the same, but people have changed. "Don't talk anymore," Fang Yan said. "Your talking will affect my speed. If that happens, we really won't be able to run." Fang Yan didn't turn around, but he could sense that someone was chasing after him. He even knew that there were a few people chasing after him. The one running at the very front was Bai Xiu. It was still Bai Xiu. Fang Yan was very familiar with Bai Xiu's presence and his running style. Just like how Bai Xiu was also very familiar with his escape route and running style. Fang Yan had already reached the foot of the mountain, still a few kilometers away from where he parked his car. "Ho!" Fang Yan stopped. Fang Yan put the phoenix down on a large rock on the side of the road, gently stroked her face and smiled. "Wait a bit." The phoenix grabbed Fang Yan's hand, her eyes as soft as water, and softly said, "Fang Yan, I might not be able to wait." "Even if you can't wait, you still have to wait." Fang Yan pretended to be angry. On TV, even if the female lead is about to die, they'll still say a few words to the male lead to say their goodbyes. "Wait until I get rid of Bai Xiu, then we'll have a few words to say our goodbyes." "Fang Yan, don't worry about me, hurry." Fang Yan naturally wouldn't leave, and he couldn't leave either. Bai Xiu was in hot pursuit. He had already caught up again. No, he wasn't chasing after him, he had already taken a shortcut to intercept him. Fang Yan would either have to jump off the cliff or run back the way he came, back up the mountain. There was an interception in front and a pursuer behind. Fang Yan was stuck between a rock and a hard place. "Wait a bit, it won't be long." Fang Yan patted the back of the phoenix's hand, gesturing for her to let go. The phoenix squinted her eyes and smiled, asking, "Do you know why I'm called the phoenix?" Fang Yan shook his head, saying, "You never told me before, just tell me in a bit." Fang Yan stood up, once again facing Bai Xiu, who was standing at a high place with his sword. Ho! With a leap, Bai Xiu jumped down from the hillside that was dozens of meters high. His long robe fluttered in the wind as if he was a celestial being. Bai Xiu looked at Fang Yan, who was in a sorry state but whose eyes were still bright, and smiled. "I'll tell you a secret, I have another profession, snake catcher." Snake catcher. Fang Yan's expression froze, his pupils turned bloodshot, and his eyes instantly turned blood red as he gritted his teeth. "Then my dad, he was killed by you." Chapter 587. Snake Lord's sister was called Wang Fong in the orphanage. It was the name given to her by the Fatso Dean. The Fatso Dean's surname was Wang. In order to express that she was a caring person and to let the outside world know that she was a family with the orphans, she gave all the children in the orphanage names like Wang Fong, Wang Chao, Wang Zhong, Wang Ling, etc. Because she was too careless, she even named the two girls Wang Yan and Wang Yan. Every time she screamed for Wang Yan, the two girls would look at her blankly, not knowing who she was looking for. After Snake Lord and Wang Fong escaped from the orphanage, Snake Lord only called Wang Fong little sister. Because he called her little sister for so long, he almost forgot her original name. But at this moment he suddenly remembered his little sister's name. Her name was Wang Fong. "Kill me!" Snake Lord used all the strength in his body and roared at Wang Fong. At this moment he felt that living was the greatest torture. All of his efforts and sacrifices, his pursuit and goals, his happiness and faith, all collapsed at this moment. He didn't even know what was the point of living. If it wasn't for his little sister, he would already be a heartless dead man. Of course, Wang Fong wouldn't kill her brother because, in her heart, her brother was the second best man in the world, aside from that man. Wang Fong loved her brother a lot and was very grateful to him. If her brother didn't want to protect her, he wouldn't have offended the dean and escaped from the orphanage. If they didn't escape from the orphanage, they wouldn't have met their master and become monsters with poisonous snakes. Before they were kidnapped, her brother was her only family. "Brother, don't be angry." Seeing her brother like this, Wang Fong was a bit worried and hurriedly explained, "I don't want to kill you, it's because I don't want to hurt you, that's why I drugged you with Qi Hong and brought you here. Don't worry, when things are over there I'll get the signal and let you go. I'll detoxify all the poison in your body. At that time you can go wherever you want." "What are you doing?" Snake Lord's voice still carried a thick Xianxia accent. He didn't usually speak, so he hadn't learned other languages. "You want to kill Fang Yan?" "I didn't kill him, they wanted to kill Fang Yan," the Snake Lord sneered. "Fang Yan is my master, he holds my snake's eye. If Fang Yan dies, I will also die. Is this what you mean by not harming me?" "No, brother, no." Wang Fong quickly shook her head and said, "He promised me that he would help me take back your snake's eye. He will help me retrieve your snake's eye before he kills Fang Yan. Besides, even if they kill Fang Yan, if Fang Yan doesn't have enough time to crush your snake's eye, you will still be fine." "What if Fang Yan thinks that I have betrayed him? What if he squeezes my snake eye until it explodes before they kill him?" "Impossible. He's very powerful. He won't give Fang Yan a chance. He'll definitely do what he promised me. Others can't, but he can. Brother, just trust him like you trust me just this once, okay?" Snake Lord's face was full of bitterness, his voice was very rustling like a poisonous snake walking on the ground. "Who is he?" Wang Fong didn't answer. "You like him?" "I like him." "You want to marry him?" Wang Fong waved her hand and said, "Brother, I won't, he's very excellent." "He's very excellent, so he won't like you?" Wang Fong's expression became sad. "He's only good to me, he treats me like a little sister." Snake Lord felt his chest become heavy, his heart was in so much pain that he couldn't breathe. "He's only good to you, he only treats you like a little sister, why are you so loyal to him?" Snake Lord tried his best to suppress the pain in his heart and looked at Wang Fong. "Little sister, come with me. It's too dangerous outside, let's go back to Xianxia. We won't care about anything, we won't get involved in anything, we'll just raise snakes like before." "Brother, I don't want to go back," Wang Fong said. "What's in the mountains?" "There's nothing in the mountains. You want to watch TV, there's not even electricity." "Brother, I don't want to go back." We shouldn't live in the mountains, we should live in the city. We can live a better life. Brother, trust me, I'll give you a better life. I'll buy you a house, I'll buy you a car, I'll take you to eat whatever you want. We should be like everyone else. Like everyone else. Snake Lord looked down at himself and said with a bitter voice, how can we be like everyone else? I'm Snake Lord, you're Snake Lord's little sister, we only know how to raise snakes. We can, Wang Fong said. He'll help us. He'll help us settle down in the city, he'll help us get everything we want as long as we're willing to listen to him and help him deal with some things. Brother, you can't go back anymore. If you have a child in the future, what about your child? Will you let him raise snakes with you as well? Child? Snake Lord was confused. Child? That kind of creature was too far away for him. In fact, he had only just understood what love was and what it felt like. Brother, we can't go back for the sake of our child, Wang Fong said with a firm voice. Let's go back. Let's go back to Xianxia, Snake Lord begged with a trembling voice. Brother, don't force me. The Snake Lord's body suddenly bounced up, like a poisonous snake lurking in the bushes and suddenly launching an attack. He reached out his hand and grabbed Wang Fong's neck. Snake Lord stared at his sister's face with a ferocious expression and said, did you forget? Not only can the golden-eye python's gallbladder cure the strange red, but also the flower-skinned snake's saliva. I have a flower-skinned snake in my pocket. Brother. Wang Fong's face turned purple, she looked at her brother in horror. Snake Lord's hand squeezed with all his might and said with a vicious voice, if you don't go back with me, I'll kill you. Fong Yan's father Fong Yixing died on the way home. This was a huge wound in Fong Yan's heart. It seemed that he had fully recovered, but when the dead skin was accidentally peeled off, the abscesses inside could be seen. It was because of the guilt and self-blame in his heart that Fong Yan lived in Swallow Dock for 3 years to mourn for his father. The hatred of his father's killer was as deep as the sea, and it was absolutely irreconcilable. However, what made people feel hopeless and powerless was that Fong Yan had no way to find out who the murderer was. The person who killed his father was the previous Snake Lord, who was also the master of the current Snake Lord, but the previous Snake Lord was killed by Xiu, who happened to pass by. In other words, his father killed the previous Snake Lord and the previous Snake Lord also killed his father. In the words of the snake slave of the current Snake Lord, both of them died together. Fong Yan also suspected Xiu because when his father was attacked, Xiu happened to pass by. How could there be such a coincidence? However, he could only suspect because he had no evidence to prove that Xiu was involved in this matter. Moreover, even if Xiu didn't get along with him, he was also from Swallow Dock. How could the people of Swallow Dock attack their own people? Also, if Xiu was involved in this matter, he didn't need to show up at all. He only needed to let the previous Snake Lord or other experts do it. Did he need to show up in public and fight with the previous Snake Lord? Did he need to let everyone know of his existence? To know that he was closely related to Fong Yixing's death, Fong Yan waited in Swallow Dock for 3 years, but the killer didn't attack again. Now Xiu stood up and said that he had another profession, which was a snake catcher. If the previous Snake Lord was a snake slave kept by Xiu, then the death of his father Fong Yixing was orchestrated by Xiu, including the fact that they forced his uncle to poison the Fong family soup pot and almost poison the entire Fong family to death. Xiu didn't directly answer Fong Yan's question. He smiled and said, the only people that Xianxia can show off are those snake keepers. But they're quite interesting. They gave themselves an awe-inspiring name called Snake Lord. The most outstanding snake keeper in every world will become the Snake Lord. They will die of old age and rise again. You should be very familiar with this. Don't you have a snake slave with you? That little snake should have told you everything, right? I only want to know one answer. Did you kill my father? Fong Yan asked calmly. The angrier he was, the more he had to maintain a calm state of mind. This was what the old drunkard Mo Qingdi warned him. However, what Fong Yan didn't know was that his eyes had already turned blood red, like a Shura demon whose eyes were bloodshot. They weren't very powerful, but fortunately they kept all kinds of poisonous snakes. They were strange and vicious, and they could be of great use in many situations. It's a pity that the snake I raised died. You only need to tell me, did you kill my father? Fong Yan asked for the 3rd time. He already knew the answer in his heart, but he needed to be sure of it. He needed to be firm and unquestionable. Xiu also looked at Fong Yan calmly and said, since you want to know so much, then I'll tell you, yes. I arranged for the Snake Lord to kill him, but he was too stupid. Before he died, he hugged my leg and begged me to help him pass a few words back. At that time he must have regarded me as his savior, right? Dad, thinking of his father's tragic death, Fang Yan cried out in grief and indignation, tears falling like rain. Chapter 588. He was humiliated when he was alive and he was humiliated after he died. Any child who saw this scene would feel as if their heart was being cut by a knife. Fang Yan, your father died because of you. Don't you feel any guilt or remorse? If I were you, I would live in seclusion for the rest of my life and never step out of Swallow Dock, Bai Xiu said coldly. Bai Xiu, Fang Yan roared hoarsely. With a crisp crack, Fang Yan had actually crushed 2 teeth in his mouth. Bai Xiu held a long sword in his hand and his robe fluttered in the wind. He held his head high and puffed out his chest, exuding an air of arrogance. He said with a face full of disdain, "What can I do even if I crush my teeth?" "I want you dead," Fang Yan said word by word. His heart was bleeding and his blood was already boiling. However, at this moment his body was bone-chilling. Because of Bai Xiu's words. Your father died because of you. Fang Yan's father, Fang Yixing, was only a painter, and was considered trash in the eyes of many people in Swallow Dock. However, such trash was ambushed by so many experts and was hunted down in such a big way. What value did he have that the enemy needed to mobilize so many experts? Fang Yan thought back and guessed countless times. He knew that his father died because of him, but before the truth was revealed he was unwilling to believe it. That was fear and also escape. Now Bai Xiu stood out and directly told Fang Yan. Fang Yan, your father died because of you. How could Fang Ji escape? How could he not believe it? Bai Xiu killed his father and his father died because of him. Fang Yan felt like his body was about to explode. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be interested in killing a painter, Bai Xiu said calmly. Fang Yan, if you were a little stronger back then, if you could run a little faster, we would have met for real long ago. The reason why I appeared at the scene of Fang Yixing's death was not to kill Fang Yixing, but to wait for you. The world is boundless, the sky is filled with wind and snow. At that time, we should have made a decision. Unfortunately, you're too slow. You've wasted the beautiful scenery that I've specially arranged for you. It's not too late. Fang Yan's mouth was bleeding. It was the blood of the teeth and the blood of the tongue. His expression was ferocious and his eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. Fang Yan's body stood there quietly, but his clothes began to flutter unconsciously. That was the result of true qi surging. According to past practice, when the true qi lifted up the clothes, it was round and curved. It was the Vajra barrier and iron skin shirt, a defensive stance. But this time was different. The edge of his shirt was raised like a spear, spreading outwards arrogantly. Every strand of hair stood up like a hedgehog about to attack. At this time, Fang Yan was full of savagery, swords and sabers on his body, ready to cut his enemies into pieces at any time. It's not too late yet, Fang Yan said with a heavy voice. He had never felt that he had to use so much energy to speak. You're not dead, I'm still alive, so it's not too late to make a decision. That's why I chose One Sword Peak. Bai Xiu smiled and said, 3 years ago, you fought against the Japanese sword god Chiba Hashirama at the top of One Sword Peak and won, instantly becoming famous. When the news reached Swallow Dock, everyone was excited, and your grandfather Feng Hui went to the village entrance to set off a string of firecrackers. Master drank a cup of wine on the spot, saying that the Feng family has a successor. That's why you're jealous of me? Jealous? Bai Xiu smiled and said, for people like us, if it's only because of jealousy, is it worth it to make such a big move? Then why is it? Because of benefits, Bai Xiu answered. When have I ever destroyed your benefits? You've destroyed a lot of people's benefits, you just don't know it. Bai Xiu chuckled and said, Fang Yan, you're too smart. People who are too smart don't have a good ending. A lot of people don't want you to continue living because everyone knows that you're not on the same path as everyone else. Alright, you started One Sword Peak and you'll end One Sword Peak. That's a start and an end. I've been loyal to you, haven't I? Come. Fang Yan waved his hand at Bai Xiu, assuming a defensive stance. Bai Xiu raised his sword, staring straight at Fang Yan and said, One sword shocks the wind and thunder. Now I'll let you see the true power of the thunderclap sword. Bai Xiu's body disappeared. Without any warning, without any movement, his body disappeared into thin air. Speed. This was the ultimate speed. When a person's speed reaches a certain limit, even the eyes will be deceived. When you see that he's still standing there, he's already preparing. When he's already in front of you, you're just surprised that he's already disappeared. Just like the sword on the mountain peak, Bai Xiu's body was still hidden in the endless darkness. However, the sound of thunder could be faintly heard in the sky, and lightning streaked across the horizon. A flash of lightning appeared in Fang Yan's pupils. That lightning was originally far away, as if it came from high up in the sky. That lightning seemed to have grown antennae, extending infinitely downward. Rumble. The lightning arrived in an instant, fiercely striking at Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan's body jumped up high, as if he was actively welcoming the lightning. Jumping steps to beat the tiger. This was a very common stance in Tai Chi, however. When used by a Tai Chi expert like Fang Yan, it wasn't common at all. His body was like a crane and he jumped like a soaring dragon. His left and right hands drew circles, then when the lightning was about to arrive he punched, crack crack crack. The peerless power of Tai Chi intertwined with the lightning, producing a deafening explosion. Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword drew out lightning, while Fang Yan's Tai Chi was like a dynamite. Using dynamite to collide with lightning, when two extremely strong and hard objects came into contact, it would naturally end in mutual destruction. Whoosh! Bai Xiu's body reappeared, returning to the position before he attacked. He left without a trace and came without a shadow. As fast as lightning in the blink of an eye. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was as if he had never left. Bai Xiu looked at Fang Yan with a solemn expression, saying, "It seems that you've gained a lot from this trip to Solitary Sword Peak." Bai Xiu felt very strange. Fang Yan was clearly about to be stabbed to death by his sword, so why did he suddenly regain his vitality and run faster than a rabbit as if nothing had happened? He knew that Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi was one of the most amazing martial arts in the world, and also the most unfathomable one. This was because, apart from a few geniuses, very few people of the Tai Chi lineage could comprehend the heart of Tai Chi, and the Tai Chi realm would appear in their minds. However, even those few geniuses would soon come to a halt and would not be able to take huge strides forward in this field. Even the person himself did not understand the heart of Tai Chi, so how would an outsider like Bai Xiu understand? If I can disappoint and confuse those idiots, it would be my greatest honor, Fang Yan said with a cold smile. He knew what Bai Xiu was confused about. With his previous strength, he would never jump up and directly use his chi to receive the lightning from the thunderclap sword, because he felt that it was not safe. Bai Xiu knew Fang Yan's strength, so he would not take the risk. He had even thought of his counterattack and had prepared several moves after that one. Unfortunately, his wish was not fulfilled. Fang Yan's counterattack was simple and clean, seemed to be effortless. This was the suppression of realms, and it was something that made him feel worried. This was the result of the breakthrough of the heart of Tai Chi, the counterattack and choice he made after he had enough confidence in his chi and strength. However, was there a need for him to tell all of this to the enemy who killed his father? Fang Yan, take one more strike from me, Bai Xiu said. Fang Yan laughed heartily. It was a heart-wrenching laugh to the point where tears were coming out. Bai Xiu, you shouldn't be called Bai Xiu, you should be called idiot. This is a decisive battle, the only result between us is to fight to the death. Not to mention one strike, even if it's 100 strikes or 1,000 strikes, I'll take them all. As long as I'm not dead, I'll take every strike from you. Fang Yan's voice was filled with grief and indignation, but it was also extremely carefree. His father died a horrible death, but he didn't know who the murderer was, so he couldn't sleep every night. Most of the time he could only bury his head in the bathtub like a tortoise with its head in its shell. Now he finally knew that the enemy who killed his father, even if he had to use all of his strength, even if he had to use every drop of blood in his body, he would make his opponent stay. Or he might be killed by his opponent. But who cared? To avenge my father, I'm willing to die 100 times. Bai Xiu, I know you're a person of the great Yin and you always like to hide things. People like you can only bury their grievances in their stomach and hold it in when they're bullied. After so many years, your body must be sick from holding it in, right? Use all of your strength, use your most powerful strike. Then let me kill you, let my father. Fang Yan's voice was choked, and after a few seconds he said, let my father be truly proud of me, proud that he has a good son. Bai Xiu's expression was solemn and he nodded at Fang Yan seriously. After so many years of grudges, today will be the final end. Fang Yan, I really want to kill you. Bai Xiu became 2 Bai Xiu, then 4 Bai Xiu. His body dashed toward Fang Yan, and every time he dashed forward he left behind an afterimage. Wrong shadow clone technique. Chapter 589. Overlapping clones. This was a sign of extreme speed. Whoosh, a sword came flying. This was a very ordinary sword. This could only be called a fast sword. A very fast sword. However, Fang Yan felt a strong sense of danger. This sword also carried lightning, not in the sky, not in the outside world, but inside the sword. Hiding and not showing it. Also on the verge of exploding. Bai Xiu's sword slashed straight at Fang Yan's head, wanting to split Fang Yan in half. His ghostly speed coupled with this godlike sword strike was indeed impossible to defend against and difficult to parry. Lightning sword. The gray-robed man on top of the mountainside. Lightning is not as good as hidden, the sword is not as good as the person. Lightning is heaven-defying will be struck by lightning. The most exquisite part is that it is hidden, yet on the verge of exploding. Once this sword is unleashed, no matter how ugly it is, who will wield the sword? The martial fanatic was also shocked, saying, "This kid is indeed impressive, his talent is rare in this world." Looking at Bai Yan, he softly said, "These youngsters nowadays really cannot be measured with common sense. At such a young age they have already established their own sects. Whether it's Fang Yan or Bai Xiu, their achievements in Taiji and the way of the sword are all worthy of being called grandmasters. Pity. Pity. 2 miracles are not miracles." The gray-robed man's voice carried a hint of a smile. "Only one can appear, and only then can it be called a miracle. So one of them must die. One of them must die." Pity. The martial fanatic Ho Zhendong's eyes flickered, not knowing what he was thinking. "Don't interfere," the gray-robed man said. "If you interfere, I'll take back what I said before." "Ha, what in the world can be hidden from you?" the martial fanatic lamented. "Of course there is." "What is it? For example, is Emo Qingdi dead or not?" This was a secret. No one knew if Emo Qingdi was alive or dead. However, ever since he entered the land of extreme frost, there was no news of him. Fang Yan understood Bai Xiu. Even though this guy liked to show off, he was not an idiot. He swung his sword so seriously and his running movements were so flashy. That proved that he had great intentions behind this sword. Fang Yan did not want to touch the thunderclap sword. He knew that once he touched it, the thunderclap inside the sword would explode with his body as a conductor, turning him into charcoal. But he had no choice but to touch it because this sword of Bai Xiu's was ever-changing, the sword moves myriad. No matter how he dodged, he would still have to face this sword head-on. The Tai Chi heart in his body spun to the extreme, and the black and white fish had already turned into a blurry illusion. Bai Xiu's body turned into a circle, embracing the 2 extremes of yin and yang. With a light tap of his feet, he flew straight up into the sky. Moon seizing 9th heaven. Bai Xiu followed suit, his long sword still enveloping Fang Yan's vitals. Fang Yan hugged the big ring with both hands and rushed toward Bai Xiu. The long sword in Bai Xiu's hand trembled incessantly, and the shocking thunder hidden within it began to roar restlessly. They were not willing to be restrained by Bai Xiu, so they impatiently drew their swords and attacked the opponents who dared to provoke them into minced meat. Whoosh! Fang Yan hugged the shocking thunder with both hands. The long sword was the moon that Fang Yan wanted to hold in his arms. Courting death, Bai Xiu sneered. With a flick of his wrist, a shocking thunder suddenly pounced toward Fang Yan's chest, which was still closing in on Fang Yan. Rumble! The shocking thunder was like a long dragon, dragging its huge tail as it pounced toward Fang Yan, opening its bloody mouth to swallow Fang Yan's head and body. No one could have imagined that Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword actually hid such a huge and powerful lightning dragon. Go to hell! Fang Yan, embracing the moon's wrist, spread open, unexpectedly hugging the lightning dragon in his bosom. If you want to beat a snake, hit it where it hurts. If you want to catch a dragon, you have to catch its neck. The lightning dragon was made up of energy, and all energy moves had an eye of energy. The eye of energy was the lightning dragon's weakness. Fang Yan hugged the lightning dragon with both hands, letting it struggle and roar in his arms. It soared high into the sky with Fang Yan, its tail desperately whipping Fang Yan's body. Crackle crackle. Fang Yan's hands gripped its neck as if he was grabbing the lifeline of an electric monster. He continuously poured his Taiji power into the lightning dragon's body, modifying the inside of its body. Lei Long felt pain as well as fear. It wanted to break free, wanted to self-destruct. How could Fang Yan let it self-destruct? Taiji focused on yin and yang. It used its purest and most natural power to restrain the lightning dragon, turning it into a pet and a monster that it could only control. Whoosh! The lightning dragon quieted down as if it had been tamed by Fang Yan. It shone with a silver light in Fang Yan's hands, but it would not do anything extreme. Bai Xiu's eyes narrowed. He did not expect the lightning dragon he had exiled to be subdued by Fang Yan. His body flashed and appeared high in the sky. His long sword flashed with a red light as it slashed toward Fang Yan's head. The long sword was silent, but because the energy was too intense, it burned the air around it, causing the lightning dragon to let out a painful groan. Bai Xiu, give me justice. Bai Xiu hugged the lightning dragon and flew higher again. His body flew higher and higher until he was above Bai Xiu's head. He hugged the lightning dragon with both hands and smashed it toward Bai Xiu's head. Boom! The lightning dragon roared and pounced toward Bai Xiu again. Bai Xiu stretched out his sword to touch the dragon's eye. As soon as he touched the lightning dragon, he broke the lightning dragon's balance and caused it to explode. Bang! The lightning dragon exploded, and the remnants of its body enveloped Bai Xiu's body. Crackle! Bai Xiu's body was struck by lightning and emitted a sound like an electric shock. Bai Xiu's body kept trembling in the air, then he lost control and rapidly descended. Fang Yan's body descended at the same time. After using Thousand Caddies Fall, his body approached Bai Xiu's body at an even faster speed. Fang Yan's feet flew out and fiercely stomped on Bai Xiu's chest. Bai Xiu, give me justice. Bang. Give me back my father's life. Bang. Bai Xiu deserves to die. Fang Yan stomped his feet over and over again, using all the strength he had in each stomp. He had never hated someone so much and he had never wanted to kill someone so much. Pa! Bai Xiu's body smashed heavily into the ground, smashing the rocks into pieces. A deep pit appeared on the ground, and Bai Xiu's body was deeply embedded in the stone pit. Bai Xiu's body lay motionless in the pit as if he was dead. Only the energy from the lightning dragon rubbed against his hair, emitting the sound of an electric shock from time to time. Bang! Fang Yan's body landed lightly on the ground. He saw Bai Xiu in the distance and walked step by step towards the place where he fell. Fang Yan looked at Bai Xiu and Bai Xiu also opened his eyes and looked at Fang Yan. The previously handsome Bai Xiu was in a sorry state at this moment. His hair was a mess and the white robe on his body was torn to shreds by the lightning dragon, making him look like a beggar's outfit. His eyes were bloodshot, a characteristic sign of his internal organs being congested with blood. Wounds appeared on his face one after another, and each wound was oozing blood, as if someone had slashed his face dozens of times. These weren't cuts from sharp objects, but from being unable to withstand Fang Yan's lightning dragon storm, causing all the blood vessels on his face to rupture. At this moment Bai Xiu's face was ashen, and he no longer had his previous elegant demeanor. Bai Xiu. Fang Yan looked at Bai Xiu condescendingly. You win. Bai Xiu grinned. When his face twitched, the blood vessels on his face bled even more fiercely. The blood mixed together and turned into blood troughs. The blood troughs converged, forming a lake of blood. Bai Xiu's face was covered in blood, and his original appearance was no longer visible. That's the obvious truth, Fang Yan sneered. I really don't want you to die, I want to see more of your pitiful appearance. To be honest, I've never considered you an opponent before, Bai Xiu calmly said. The blood had already flowed into his eyes, but he still didn't care. I always felt that you weren't my opponent and you shouldn't be my opponent. Although you've shown some talent, how is this level enough? Also, you're too impetuous. I've always felt that impetuous people don't amount to much. I just didn't expect the heart of Tai Chi to be so miraculous that even a sure kill like this couldn't kill you. Don't say anything for now, Fang Yan said. It looks like you're saying goodbye. Winner takes all, this is a farewell. What? Isn't killing me what you're looking forward to the most? That's not it either, Fang Yan said. His hands searched all over his body but he couldn't find his phone. After thinking about it carefully, he either forgot to bring it or he lost it during the fight. Fang Yan felt extremely regretful and said, I just wanted to take a picture of you before you die. If you die later, I'll take a few more looks at you. Cough, cough, cough. Bai Xiu started coughing violently. As soon as he coughed, a large amount of blood spurted out from his mouth. Bai Xiu's internal organs were severely injured and his organs were displaced. He was probably not far from death. Fang Yan, this is how annoying you are. You'll never lose in a fight of words. Bai Xiu coughed for a long time before stopping, panting heavily, then said, That's why I couldn't help but want to kill you countless times. To be honest, even if there's no benefit, even if it doesn't involve the phoenix, I still want to kill you. This is also what I wanted to say to you. Fang Yan smiled, and I'm preparing to do so. Fang Yan raised his foot and stepped on Bai Xiu's head, saying, Bai Xiu, I won't ask you anything, I'll just send you off. Go die. Chapter 590. There were 4 great joys in life: rain after a long drought, meeting an old friend in a foreign land, wedding night, and taking revenge for one's father. Fang Yan was very excited and emotional at the moment. It had been 3 years. In these 3 years he had been thinking about this matter all the time. He was guessing who his father's murderer was. He suspected one by one and then denied them one by one. He was thinking about how to defeat his enemy. He wanted to use the cruelest method to knock him down and kill him. The only solution was to pay a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood, and a life for a life. Other than death, it was hard for him to think of another way to avenge his father. He did it. He finally knocked his father's murderer to the ground. His foot stepped on his face, on the face that used to be handsome and charming. Fang Yan only needed to exert a little bit of force, and he would be able to stomp his head into the cracks between the rocks. He would be able to fuse with Mount One sword, never to be separated. Coincidentally, this Mount One sword was the natural tomb he chose for himself. Move your foot. When Fang Yan was about to stomp down, a hard voice came over. That voice was not only domineering, but it also carried a hint of arrogance that could crush him at any time. It was as if Fang Yan's life was already in his hands. Fang Yan turned around and saw the man in black, who was like a hill, holding a black pistol and aiming it at his head. Oh, there was also another man in black who looked like the Xian brothers, holding another pistol and aiming it at his chest. The 2 of them stood on the left and right sides of Fang Yan, forming an 8 encirclement. The muzzles of the 2 pistols were firmly locked on Fang Yan's body. In this moonless and starless night, they were still wearing black suits and shirts. If one's vision was not good, one would not be able to see where they were standing. These people had caught up long ago, but when Fang Yan and Bai Xiu were fighting, they chose to watch from the sidelines. Fang Yan liked these simple-minded opponents. Impossible, Fang Yan said. It wasn't easy for him to defeat Bai Xiu. It wasn't easy for him to step on Bai Xiu's face. It wasn't easy for him to avenge his father's humiliation. How could he give up on what he wanted to do just because of a stupid threat? If he wasn't holding a gun in his hand, Fang Yan would have rushed over and beaten him up. If he dies, you will die too, Xian said aloud. The safety of the pride pistol in his hand had long been pulled off. He only needed to gently press the trigger and Fang Yan's head would explode. No, not only the head would explode, but the body would also explode. If he didn't move his foot away from Bai Xiu's face, Bai Xiu's head might also be blown up because of him. This was the pride pistol that appeared after being modified by countless gun modification experts in the black market. Its explosive power was equivalent to a powerful genetic bomb. Nowadays, the assassins were using the most advanced and lethal weapons. They could not wait to make the entire building the target lived in collapse with one shot. Only a few nostalgic old fellows still used the most primitive gunpowder bullets. They said they liked the faint smell of smoke and fire. Of course, those who dared to be so pretentious were the top killers in the world of killers. Ordinary killers still used the safest way to solve the target and complete the mission. They didn't like Bai Xiu and were willing to see him fail and be beaten to the ground. However, they didn't want to bear the responsibility of killing Bai Xiu by mistake. If that was the case, that young master would not let them have a good time. I don't believe it, Fang Yan said. He would not accept being threatened even if someone pointed a gun at his head. And his chest. Xian glanced at his brother and said with a smile, "Sometimes I feel that you are frighteningly cunning and sometimes I feel that you are as stupid as a pig. Don't you see what we are holding in our hands? We just need to press it gently. Your head is like an egg that has been smashed by a punch. The color of the egg yolk may not be very nice and the smell is not very pleasant. I have smelled it and then I vomited the Kobe beef that I just ate in the afternoon. Brother Shu, don't talk nonsense with him, let's blow his head off, Xiao Shan'an's brother said impatiently. He didn't like Fang Yan and even more so he disliked Fang Yan's pretentious manner. I have already pointed a gun at your head and not only are you not afraid to beg for mercy, but you are also talking nonsense with us without fear. Do you think our pride pistol is fake? Do you think we, the gunmen, are blind? Out of professional pride and personal pride, Xiao Shan'an's brother really wanted to kill Fang Yan with one shot. As for what happened after that, they could do whatever they wanted. Didn't they just kill a piece of trash when they killed Fang Yan? For the sake of his brother's great contribution, the young master would probably not blame them. You see, my brother is already impatient. Xiao Shan'an, who was called Brother Shu but looked nothing like a mouse, laughed mockingly. Although my patience is better than my brother's, it is not much better. So I will give you one last chance. Get your feet out of the way. Let me test you with a brain teaser. Fang Yan was a little helpless. He looked at Xiao Shan'an and said, if I move my foot away from his face, will you not shoot me? Xiao Shan'an's expression stiffened and said, that depends on your attitude, you're lying. Fang Yan said, if you don't want to shoot me, you don't have to keep asking me to move my foot away from Bai Xiu's face. The reason why you keep asking me to move my foot away from Bai Xiu's face is because you don't want to hurt your companions by accident when you shoot me. You can't afford such a responsibility. Is that right? Xiao Shan'an and his brother looked at each other, deeply impressed by Fang Yan's wisdom. This man's analysis was so reasonable that they could not refute it. When the weak could not refute, they liked to use their ultimate killer move, pestering. So Xiao Shan'an's brother scolded and said, I told you to move your foot away, so you obediently move your foot away, or else I will shoot you. Fang Yan looked at Xiao Shan'an sadly and said, since you insist on shooting me, why should I listen to you and move my foot away from his face? Why should I do such a thing that will only bring disgrace upon myself? Just like what that idiot brother of yours said, if I don't move my foot away, he'll shoot me dead. If I move my foot away, he'll lay down his arms and surrender without doing anything. Is the name of your group called 438 Retarded Brothers? You dare to scold people? Xiao Shan'an was furious. He wanted to remind Fang Yan again that he was still holding a gun in his hand. I will also threaten people, Fang Yan said with a cold look. He looked at the Xiao Shan'an brothers and said, tonight I only want to leave Bai Xiu alone. If you are smart enough, get down the mountain and tell your master that I will soon find him to settle the score. Xiao Shan'an laughed and said, do you really think we are idiots? We are pointing a gun at your head right now. As long as I pull the trigger you will die. Why should we go down the mountain? Even Xiao Mu, who was at the side, could not stand it anymore. He pointed at Fang Yan and scolded, you bastard with the surname Fang, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you defeated Bai Xiu. We old fellows are still alive. You better listen to him and kneel down to surrender. Otherwise we won't be polite to you. Xiao Mu stood next to Phoenix. When he said that he would not be polite to Fang Yan, he deliberately turned around and glanced at Phoenix. The meaning of the threat was very obvious. If she didn't listen to him obediently, he would smash this traitorous little girl into mincemeat with a single punch. Because Phoenix had saved Fang Yan's life at the critical moment, everyone in this encirclement team did not have a good impression of her. Previously, with Bai Xiu protecting her, they would not do anything to her. Now that even Bai Xiu, who was protecting her, had been beaten to the ground, they did not mind giving her some punishment. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows. This was indeed a problem that he was more worried about. When he and Bai Xiu were fighting in the sky, these people had caught up and automatically formed a new encirclement. The two silent old men stood on high ground, one holding a copper basin and the other holding a black and white chess piece. They could attack Fang Yan again at any time. After this period of rest, Saber Lord Luo Jin's complexion looked much better. He stood opposite the silent old man. The two of them formed a situation where a close-range warrior and a long-range spellcaster worked together. Xiao Mu had a fiery temper, but his mind was also the most agile. He immediately flashed in front of Phoenix and grasped her life in his hands. Kongzhu stood in front of him on the left. The two brothers also formed a small offensive and defensive formation that advanced and retreated together. Not to mention the two idiots who were pointing guns at Fang Yan's head and chest. Although Fang Yan had defeated Bai Xiu, the situation was still very disadvantageous to him. Fang Yan looked at Kushan Nan and said, "Let me tell you my decision. If either of you dares to pull the trigger, I will cut off the arm that fired the shot at the same time as the bullet is fired." As Fang Yan spoke, he reached out and grabbed Bai Xiu's thunderclap sword that had fallen to the ground. Go to hell, Kashima's brother could not bear such an insult. He aimed at Fang Yan's chest and pulled the trigger. Bang! The powerful recoil of the world-defying made a clang sound. A golden bullet shot out from the muzzle and headed for Fang Yan's chest. Whoosh! Fang Yan's body disappeared. When he reappeared, the bullet had already flown past where he had been standing. He once again maintained his original posture, the posture where one foot was stepping on Bai Xiu's head. He liked this posture very much and wished that someone could take a picture of him. Of course, it seemed that this wish could not be fulfilled. Fang Yan's speed was too fast. It was as if he had never left. "You bastard," Kashima's brother laughed and said, "Didn't you say that as long as I shoot?" "Green Cat," Kashima shouted anxiously. Green Cat looked down and saw that one of his arms had been detached from his body and was falling to the ground. Just as Fang Yan had threatened, the arm that had been cut off happened to be the one that had fired the gun. "I mean what I say," Fang Yan said coldly. "I've lived for more than 10 years and I've never lied to anyone." Chapter 591. If either of you dare to pull the trigger, I will cut off the arm that fired the shot at the same time as the bullet is fired. In the blink of an eye, or rather, in the blink of an eye, Fang Yan had already rushed out and chopped off one of the shooter's arms. And it was the arm that fired the shot. If he said to hit the left side of your face, he would never hit the right side. If he said to cut off the hand that fired the gun, he would never cut off the hand that fired the airplane. It had to be said that Fang Yan's way of showing off was quite intimidating. Fang Yan's speed was too fast, so fast that it was hard for the eyes to follow his movements. Except for Bai Xiu, who was lying on the ground and being stepped on, it was hard for the others to keep up with his pace. This was the difference in strength, and this was the suppression of realms. Without Bai Xiu the thorn in his side, Fang Yan felt a lot happier and his life was a lot better. Bang! The bullet that the Green Cat shot out with the Proud World pistol hit the trunk of a big tree, and the bullet drilled a deep hole in the tree trunk. There was a short silence and then a loud bang was heard. The trunk of the big tree broke in the middle and exploded. The living wood scattered everywhere. The whole tree was blown into the sky and the broken branches and leaves rustled. Crack crack. When they landed, they were still dismembered in the air, and the huge head was scattered into countless small branches. If it hit a human body, blood and flesh would fly and it would be a mess. It had to be said that the Proud pistol was indeed powerful. It was similar to the attack power of a miniature rocket launcher. And it was more accurate than a rocket launcher. This was the sound of Green Cat's hand and the Proud pistol falling to the ground. Fang Yan's sword was very artistic. It cut off the shoulder bone and separated from the body. When it fell off, Green Cat didn't feel anything strange. He even wanted to pull the trigger and shoot a second bullet. However, even though his brain had issued the order, his arm couldn't carry it out. Green Cat didn't feel pain until his arm fell to the ground. Blood gushed out like a red fountain. Ah! The Green Cat opened its mouth and screamed. Only then did he feel the pain. It was a heart-wrenching pain. If it weren't for his strong willpower, he would have fainted on the spot. "Green Cat, are you all right?" Mouse's eyes stared at Fang Yan without blinking, and the Proud World pistol in his hand was aimed at Fang Yan's head without moving. His expression was ferocious, and he looked at Fang Yan with murderous eyes. He and the Green Cat were both members of the Jiang family. They were guards specially trained by the Jiang family to protect the important members of the family. They only had code names and no names, but their lives were closely linked to the rise and fall of the Jiang family. Not only them but also their children and grandchildren, they were all part of the general's family. The Jiang family had dug them out and nurtured them. The Jiang family gave them everything and they only needed to offer their abilities and loyalty. It was precisely because of their status as members of the Jiang family that they disliked the people around Jiang Junling. If you've read Jin Yan's biography, you'll understand that there are fights between masters and there are also fights between servants. No one has an easy life. Mouse and the green cat were the bodyguards assigned by the Jiang family to Jiang Junling, so they could only be Jiang Junling's people for the rest of their lives. Emotionally, they were as close as brothers. Now that the green cat's arm was cut off, Mouse really wanted to shoot. When the bullets exploded and the green cat screamed, everyone's eyes were attracted to them. Mouse really wanted to shoot Fang Yan's head. He didn't dare to move and he didn't dare to be careless. Fang Yan was indeed a man who could do what he said. He said that if anyone dared to shoot, he would cut off the shooter's arm, and he really did it. Just like he said, "I've lived for more than 10 years and I've never lied to anyone." He really wasn't a person who liked to lie. But what if? What if after he shot, not only did he not kill Fang Yan, but he also got one of his arms cut off like the green cat? Mouse was in pain and confused. In the hunter school in Africa, they mainly learned marksmanship. They felt that modern warfare was mainly about money and technology, and a high-performance pistol was enough to conquer the world. Didn't they say the same thing? No matter how good your martial arts is, you're still afraid of a kitchen knife. No matter how sharp the kitchen knife is, you'll be killed by a gun. Which son of a bitch said this? Mouse thought angrily in his heart. He felt that he was cheated. Mouse felt wronged. He used to think that those people with knives and swords couldn't keep up with the times, but now he realized that he couldn't keep up with the speed of others. "Kill him, quickly kill him," the green cat screamed. Because the pain made him lose his mind, he wished that someone could cut off his head. Living was much harder than dying. As the green cat screamed, he picked up the Aoshi pistol from the ground again. He used his only left hand to grab the pistol and once again raised it to shoot. Screech! Another silhouette flashed by. The gun didn't fire and the bullet didn't come out. However, the green cat's other arm also fell to the ground. "Kill!" The green cat didn't even get to finish his sentence before falling to the ground. Fang Yan stood still with the thunderclap sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was stained with blood, but Fang Yan's foot was still on Bai Xiu's face. Bai Xiu laughed and said, "These people are no match for you. Killing them is as easy as flipping your hand. However, I like to see you kill people. Only a serious man has a future. When you kill people, you're much more likable than when you're smiling. Fang Yan, kill me. I'm the person who killed your father. As long as I'm alive, you won't be able to forgive yourself. Don't you want to avenge your father?" "Don't be impatient," Fang Yan smiled and said. "Do you think I don't want to kill you? If Phoenix wasn't in their hands, I would have already crushed your head with my foot. It's still early. Don't you like to see me kill people? Then open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Watch how I take care of each of them. Tonight I'll let you watch to your heart's content." "You still don't have the courage," Bai Xiu sighed lightly. "An opponent like this is truly disappointing." Fang Yan's foot began to exert force, deforming Bai Xiu's face. Yes, just like that. Because his face was deformed and his mouth was dislocated, Bai Xiu's voice had become indistinct. "Use a bit more force. Just a bit more force and I'll be dead." Bam! Xiu Mu threw a punch. A huge pit immediately appeared next to the boulder that the phoenix was lying on. Rubble flew everywhere and it looked as if the phoenix, who was sleeping on the boulder, was going to be buried alive. "Fang Yan brat, I'll say it one last time. Move your foot, otherwise I'll smash her into a meat patty," Xiu Mu cursed. He rushed over and dragged Phoenix up from the boulder. Phoenix's body was so weak that she couldn't stand up at all. Xiu Mu grabbed Phoenix's neck with one hand, using the strength of his arm to support his body. He stared at Fang Yan mockingly and said, "Just now this little whore begged for mercy and blocked my sword for you. You must feel terrible, right? If she dies in front of you like this, you'll blame yourself for the rest of your life, right? But it doesn't matter. There are too many cruel and unscrupulous men in this world. One more won't make a difference." Fang Yan calmly looked at Xiu Mu and said, "You're using her to threaten me. What do you want me to do? Cripple my own martial arts? Or tie myself up, kneel in front of you and let you chop off my head?" Xiu Mu was dumbfounded. He did whatever he wanted and hadn't thought of using Phoenix to threaten Fang Yan at all. He wasn't a qualified kidnapper and he hadn't even thought of the conditions and lines for negotiation. "If I don't die, she won't die. If I die, she'll die with me. I'm sure you won't keep her alive. The more dangerous the situation, the more you must remain calm." This was a message that Emo Qingdi had passed on to him. He had defeated Bai Xiu, but the situation was still very disadvantageous to him. Bai Xiu was a good card in his hand, but Phoenix's life was in the hands of someone else. What kind of choice should he make? Because Phoenix had betrayed him, he could use Phoenix's life to exchange for Bai Xiu's words. In that case, he could avenge his father as he wished. However, Phoenix had betrayed him and she had also saved him. It's hard to make a choice, isn't it? An old voice reached Fang Yan's ears. Fang Yan could clearly sense that the voice wasn't coming from his surroundings, but from a faraway place. However, he could hear it very clearly, as if an old man was speaking and sighing in his ears. Using qi to condense the spirit and not disperse for a long time. The person speaking, his inner force cultivation should have reached the realm of transcendent, right? Who are you? Fang Yan shouted in a stern voice. Who are you? Do you really want to see me? The old voice once again sounded in Fang Yan's ears. Fang Yan had a bad feeling. He could feel the danger. It was a natural reaction to being coveted by a powerful and ferocious animal. The hairs on his body stood on end, and a fine layer of goosebumps appeared on the surface of his skin. His heart of Taiji spun again, automatically activating the first layer of protection. Fang Yan was a little regretful. Why did he ask, "Who are you?" Wouldn't it be better to pretend that he didn't hear what he said? "Are you afraid of me?" Before Fang Yan could answer, the old voice once again sounded in Fang Yan's ears. Chapter 592. Have you ever had this kind of experience? When your schedule is already full, there are still all kinds of beautiful women with long legs, fair skin, big breasts, and round buttocks calling you to ask you out for coffee. I know you haven't had this kind of experience, I'm just asking. But Fang Yan had this kind of trouble. He felt like he was being harassed by countless ugly women. He was stepping on Bai Xiu. He had just cut off one of Green Cat's arms, and the men he had to face next were Rat, Xiu Mu, Diablo, and Sword Monarch. He was speechless. His time was really tight. Now there was an old man with an ugly voice who wanted to cut the line to see you. How would you feel? "I'm not afraid of you." Fang Yan was furious and said to the old man, "I just don't have time to see you." Fang Yan praised himself for being quick-witted. He felt that his answer was decent and perfect. Even when he rejected others, he revealed a sense of superiority. Not everyone could have such a flexible and ever-changing style of speech. Fang Yan didn't want to see the old man who could condense qi to communicate. If that person wasn't your grandfather, who would want to see an old man? At least not at this time. Whoosh, or rather there was no whoosh. It was so sudden, so abruptly, that a figure suddenly appeared in front of Fang Yan. The figure was covered in a gray robe. His face couldn't be seen and his figure couldn't be seen clearly. He was like an illusory person, a ghostly shadow. It was as if one could pass through his body just by touching it with their hands. His body blurred for a few seconds before slowly becoming solid. Fang Yan still couldn't see his face clearly, but he knew that he was an old man. He could feel the old man's aura. "I don't think so," the gray-robed man said with a smile. "Isn't it just killing a few people? How long would it take?" In his eyes, Xiu Mu and Diablo were just a few ants. How long would it take to crush them? Whoosh! Another figure appeared in front of Fang Yan. No, a naked man appeared in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yan recognized this naked man. Just as he was about to greet him and mock him, the naked man acted as if he didn't see him. He turned to look at the gray-robed man and said, "You said that you wouldn't make a move tonight." "That's what I said." The gray-robed man looked at the martial addict and nodded. "But now you want to make a move," Ho Zhendong, the martial maniac, accused. "You didn't keep your word. You broke your oath." "I only said that I won't do anything tonight, I didn't swear." The gray-robed man tried to explain himself. "Besides, even if I swear, what's the punishment for breaking the oath? 3 cups as punishment? Or do you want to eat meat?" "You can't do this. I said I won't make a move because I think that kid Bai Xiu will definitely win." "But since Bai Xiu actually lost, I naturally have to make a move. You're a senior, a famous person." The martial fanatic said awkwardly. "What's said is like spilled water, how can you take it back?" "Who said spilled water can't be taken back?" The gray-robed man coldly laughed. "Why don't you pour a basin of water out and see if I can get it back? If spilled water can be taken back, what's wrong with changing my mind? Having lived to my age and status, I can say whatever I want, I can do whatever I want. Who can stop me?" The gray-robed man looked up at the martial addict's body and scoffed. You're one of the 7 fanatics of Wuxia, yet you run around with your butt bare. When did you ever care about your reputation? During his battle with Fang Yan, the clothes on the martial addict's body were all burnt away. That's why he's still naked right now. The martial addict hurriedly put his hand over his chest. After a bit of thought, he put his hand over his crotch. After a bit of thought, he put one hand over his chest, the other over his crotch. He was so ashamed that he wanted to die. Originally, Fang Yan harbored hatred towards martial arts fanatic. If it weren't for this old fellow's scheme to frame him, repeatedly provoking him, and his superb performance, how would he have been tricked to the summit of One Sword Peak by him, exhausted all his energy in a fierce battle, and almost stabbed to death by that shameless fellow by Xiao? But now, seeing how he tried so hard to persuade the gray-robed man not to make a move, he felt a bit of goodwill towards him. This guy wasn't a good person, but he wasn't so bad that he had no bottom line. Furthermore, he had something he was willing to protect and hold on to. This was something he and Fang Yan had in common. Fang Yan originally planned to have a good fight with Hou Zhendong, the martial arts maniac, after settling the matter of One Sword Peak. He would shoot him dead when he was not paying attention. Fang Yan's heart softened. Cutting off his arms, legs, and the middle part of his life should be enough. Leave a way out and you'll drink later. Fang Yan couldn't bear to see the martial addict's embarrassment, so he stared at the gray-robed man with a sharp gaze, as if he wanted to see through the black cloak to see his current expression and face. Going back on his words. How did such a shameless guy get to where he is today? Who are you? Fang Yan asked again. Brat, are you sure you want to know who I am? The gray-robed man chuckled. If you know who I am, you won't be able to leave One Sword Peak tonight. Fang Yan pointed his sword at Bai Xiu, who was still under his feet, and said, That's what he said earlier, but now he's under my feet and I'm holding his sword in my hand. The gray-robed man laughed. He laughed wantonly and laughed to his heart's content. He really did find this to be funny. It's been so many years since someone dared to threaten me so openly. In this world, how many people are worthy of being my opponent? Do you think I'll end up like him? Of course you won't. Fang Yan smiled. You're worse off than him, brat. You want to die. The gray-robed man struck out with his palm. Fang Yan wanted to raise his hand to parry, but the palm had already reached his chest. Bam! Taking this strike head-on, Fang Yan spat out a mouthful of blood. His chi flow was disrupted, his blood was boiling. His internal organs were in turmoil, his chest felt like it was being crushed by a boulder, making it hard for him to move. The gray-robed man's cultivation was indeed high. His palm strike almost took Fang Yan's life. Fortunately, Fang Yan had the Taiji heart to protect his body, so before the black-robed man made his move, they had already begun to spin. When the black-robed man struck out with his palm, Fang Yan didn't even have time to counterattack, but the Taiji heart reacted, instantly sending a majestic aura to the place where the palm struck, protecting Fang Yan's vitals. Otherwise, the gray-robed man's palm strike would have shattered Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yan's body leaned back a little, but he quickly regained his standing posture. His right foot had been stepping on Bai Xiu's head. This was a small hobby of his. The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled expression, asking, That palm didn't kill you? I don't think this is something to be proud of. Fang Yan stared at the gray-robed man cautiously, worried that he would attack again without any warning. This old man's attack speed was too fast, even I can't keep up with him. I wonder who in this world is his match. Fang Yan felt very sad. He couldn't remember offending such an expert. Why do they always have to make life difficult for me? Aside from my handsome appearance, I'm not that outstanding in any other aspect. Why do they all like Bai Xiu? When I struck out, I actually felt a rebounding force. The gray-robed man's voice was low. He looked at Fang Yan and said, You are too young in my eyes, you are just a weak child. Just like those other children, a single palm strike would be enough to crush you to a pulp. But I have to admit, you are an expert, a genius. Or, in other words, a miracle that people often talk about. The Taiji heart is indeed a mysterious and marvelous martial art, but unfortunately it fell into your hands. Comprehending the light of Taiji in one night, mastering the Taiji twin fish and endlessly growing chi in your body, to have such a cultivation at such a young age, no wonder the martial fanatic loves you and doesn't want to kill you. Fang Yan glanced at the martial fanatic who was still covering his chest and crotch with both hands and said, Brat, if I were you, I would think of a way to escape. Run as far as I can. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. Do you understand? Fang Yan smiled and nodded, saying, but with the current situation, even if I wanted to escape, I wouldn't be able to, right? The martial fanatic sighed, then looked at the gray-robed man and said, how about I owe you another favor and you let this brat go? The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yan and said, since the martial fanatic is begging for mercy again, I can give you another chance. Let go of the brat under your feet and I'll let you go. Fang Yan wanted to refuse, but the gray-robed man waved his hand to stop him, saying, young man, don't be in such a hurry, wait for this old man to finish. I'm not forcing you to agree to my request, I'm actually hoping that you will refuse. You can kill Bai Xiu, then I'll kill you and that girl called Phoenix. Your choice. Is there a third choice? Fang Yan asked. The gray-robed man slightly raised his head, looking at Fang Yan like he was an idiot. What does he think I am? A vegetable vendor who can bargain with me? Don't be angry, I was just asking casually. Fang Yan smiled and said, what if you think that it's a good idea for me to stomp Bai Xiu to death? Then let me and Phoenix go. I don't like talkative young men. The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yan and said, what's your choice? The martial fanatic desperately signaled to Fang Yan, telling him to quickly let go of Bai Xiu and leave with Phoenix. Bai Xiu was already a cripple, couldn't he just find a chance to kill him? Fang Yan nodded at the martial fanatic, then looked at the gray-robed man and said, I refuse. Chapter 593. I refuse. Fang Yan said. That's your final decision? The man in gray looked up at Fang Yan with a hint of a smile in his eyes. But the smile was very cold as an ice sculpture in a land of extreme coldness. Just a glance was enough to make people shiver. Fang Yan, you idiot. Do you know what you're doing? The martial addict was so angry that he stomped his feet and waved his arms, forgetting to cover the fat on his chest. I finally gave you a chance to live, why are you wasting it like this? I refuse, just like how I refused to run away when the Xianxia military department came to challenge me, even though I knew I couldn't win, Fang Yan said. I refuse, just like how I refused to compromise when I knew I was up against a powerful enemy that could take my life at any time. I refuse the cowardice and fear in my heart. Because after this I'm worried that there will be a next time. I refuse the pity and charity of the enemy. I want to live, but I can also die. I refuse Fang Hui's grandson to surrender to the enemy. Because my grandfather said that the men of the Fang family must never surrender. His grandfather's grandfather never surrendered, his grandfather's father never surrendered. His grandfather never surrendered, his grandfather's son never surrendered, and his grandfather's grandson can't surrender either. I refuse Fang Yixing's son to spare the life of the killer. The hatred of my father's death is irreconcilable. Nothing can stop my desire for revenge. Fang Yan stared at the man in gray with a knife-like gaze and said with a clear voice, I refuse. I refuse to spare Bai Xiu. This is my final decision. The martial addict's mouth was slightly open, his eyes wide as he stared at the proud and righteous Fang Yan. So words can be said like this? Acting cool can be done like this? Knowledgeable people are truly scary. The martial addict sighed in his mind. If that's the case. The man in gray stared at Fang Yan like needles and said, why haven't you made your move yet? Bai Xiu is already lying under your feet. You only need to raise your foot to stomp on his head and kill him neatly. Why haven't you done anything yet? Because I've always had a fluke in my heart. Fang Yan answered truthfully. Just now, I wanted to kill Bai Xiu, but I also wanted to save myself and the Phoenix's lives. As long as there was a chance, I wanted to get the best of both worlds. This is human nature. But from the moment you appeared, I had already made up my mind. If my chances of escaping are slim, then I'll choose to kill Bai Xiu. Young man, do you know that there are many things where reality and ideals are very different? The gray-robed man chuckled. You want him dead and I want him to live. Tell me, is he dead or alive? Fang Yan did not answer the gray-robed man's question. It was a difficult question to answer. If he wanted to kill Bai Xiu, he had to kill him. But this gray-robed man wanted Bai Xiu to live. He would save Bai Xiu, and the best way to save Bai Xiu was to kill him. Fang Yan knew that because of his refusal, this gray-robed man already had the intention to kill him. Fang Yan stared at the gray-robed man without blinking. Fang Yan was preparing to exert force on his foot. As long as he exerted force and sank the qi in his dantian, he could easily kill Bai Xiu with the internal force in his body even without lifting his foot. But when he did this, he would give the gray-robed man an opportunity. In the eyes of an expert, your every move, every glance, every breath could be an opportunity to attack. Fang Yan did not know who the gray-robed man was, but he knew very well that this was the most powerful enemy he had ever met. The smile on the gray-robed man's face froze, only staring sharply at Fang Yan in front of him. The martial fanatic felt that a great battle was about to break out, so he opened his mouth to say something. The gray-robed man coldly said, "Everything should be done in moderation if you still remember who gave you a second life." The martial fanatic sighed, then turned around to leave the battlefield. He understood that his efforts were unnecessary. Whether it was Fang Yan or the gray-robed man, they were both extremely proud and stubborn people. If they had their own thoughts, they wouldn't be easily swayed by others. "Young man, you are very talented, the fastest growing person I've ever seen." The gray-robed man looked at Fang Yan and said, "You are also very courageous, why don't you try again?" Fang Yan did not say anything, only trying his best to keep his breathing even. He stood like a statue, a fortress without any flaws in defense. The gray-robed man shook his head and said, "You're wrong. Tai Chi emphasizes defense not offense, but both your grandfather and Mo Qingdi, they both emphasize offense not defense. In the same vein, offense is your greatest advantage. Unfortunately, you gave up on that." As the gray-robed man spoke, his body had already disappeared. Bam! His palm struck Fang Yan's chest, sending Fang Yan's body flying. One step too late again. As Fang Yan saw the gray-robed man's body disappear, Fang Yan also made a counterattack. He struck out with his palm, wanting to take the gray-robed man's palm head-on. The best result would be to also strike him, but it was too slow. As soon as his palm struck out, his body had already been sent flying. Crack! Fang Yan's body smashed heavily onto a branch that was as thick as a bull's mouth, breaking it into two. Fang Yan's body leaned against the lower half of the tree trunk. He breathed heavily to calm his roiling qi and blood, as well as his severely displaced internal organs. Blood once again flowed from the corner of his mouth, but it was much better than the first time he was hit. This time he was prepared in advance. But he was still unable to block the gray-robed man's attack. Fang Yan waited until his body was a little more comfortable. When the Taiji heart in his body started to spin again, he once again walked towards the gray-robed man. The gray-robed man stood beside Bai Xiu, who was lying at his feet. The difference was that he did not use his foot to step on Bai Xiu's head. Fang Yan strode towards the gray-robed man. He wanted to snatch Bai Xiu back. He did not care who Bai Xiu was, he only remembered that he was the enemy who killed his father. The gray-robed man's eyes turned cold. Fang Yan's unyielding and unappreciative attitude made him feel despised. Without any movement, his body disappeared again. He struck out with his palm again, aiming for Fang Yan's chest. Fang Yan stretched out his hand to block. He caught it. He felt a round force coming from the front. Bang! Fang Yan's chest was hit again and his body flew backward again. His palm hit nothing but air. When he felt that his palm was about to touch the gray-robed man's palm, the gray-robed man suddenly changed his move. The round force he came into contact with was only the shadow of the palm. The real move had deceived his eyes and hit his chest. Whoosh whoosh! Fang Yan's body slid on the ground, smashing countless branches, grass and protruding rocks along the way. Clang! Fang Yan's body slammed into a large rock and his body came to a halt with difficulty. Fang Yan lay there motionlessly. After sensing his body's condition, he got up from the ground again. He took the initiative to walk towards the gray-robed man, taking the initiative to attack. Fang Yan felt that the gray-robed man's words were very reasonable. Although Taiji emphasized defense and not offense, both his grandfather and his senior brother Mo Qingdi emphasized offense and not defense. Since they were of the same origin, offense was the greatest advantage of Fang clan's Taiji. Fang Yan wanted to take the initiative to attack. He didn't know what the best outcome would be, but he knew what the worst outcome would be. Fang Yan give up. Martial fanatic tried to stop him. Even if Mo Qingdi was at his peak, he wouldn't necessarily be able to win against him. You're still too young. Did Mo Qingdi retreat? Fang Yan asked. No. Martial fanatic Marquis Zhendong gloomily replied. Was this the reason why Imo Qingdi was one of the 3 divine dragons in his prime, even though he was only one of Huaxia's 7 fanatics? They knew what the best choice was, but they were willing to try the most difficult path. When facing a powerful opponent, they would never give up. Was this the secret to their success? I won't either. Fang Yan let the blood flow from the corner of his mouth as he dove down, taking the initiative to rush towards the phantom-like gray-robed man. Whoosh! Fang Yan used drunken crane riding the wind, the most mysterious and most difficult movement technique to grasp. In a strange state, he rushed to the back of the gray-robed man and slammed his palm into the middle of his back. Tai Chi palm, controlling the Tai Chi, giving rise to endless variations. Too slow. The gray-robed man suddenly turned around and spoke with a mocking and sympathetic tone. Then he struck with his palm, striking first despite being the second to strike. Bam! Fang Yan's chest was hit again and his body flew into the air again. He spat out a mouthful of blood, creating a small rain of blood in the air. Clang clang. Fang Yan's body landed heavily on the ground, creating a deep pit in the hard ground. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the gray-robed man's palm strike was. Even when Fang Yan used his own body to block most of the force, there was still a large amount of the remaining force that destroyed the ground. This time the wound was so deep that Fang Yan only felt dizzy, stars flashing in his eyes. It was because of the dazzling stars in his eyes that Fang Yan knew for sure that he was still alive. Cough, cough, cough. Fang Yan coughed violently. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The blood stained his mouth, his neck and his ears, all the way into his ear hole. Fang Yan used his elbows and knees to push himself up from the ground. After the consecutive battles tonight, his clothes were tattered, his hair was messy and his face was stained with blood. Because of the pain he could only bend his body slightly. But he still walked step by step toward the gray-robed man. My father's death cannot be in vain. Fang Yan wiped the blood and tears from the corner of his eyes, so that his eyes could see a little more clearly. With a cold and stubborn voice he said, I won't either. Chapter 594. Fang Yan was not a fool. Just as Bai Xiu had said, in many people's eyes Fang Yan was too smart, and he was not on the same path as them. This was also the reason why they were determined to get rid of him. However, at this moment Fang Yan was doing something extremely stupid. Countless seniors had learned this lesson through blood and tears. If you can win, then fight. If you can't win, then run. If you can't run, then pretend to be dead. Fang Yan had always thought of this as his principle of doing things. However, when he was facing an absolute expert like the gray-robed man, he tossed the words of a senior to the back of his mind. In a moment of hot-headedness, he wanted to rush up and fight with his life on the line. He fell down again and again and got up again and again. The power of the gray-robed man's palm was very strong. Every time it hit Fang Yan's chest, it was like a huge hammer hitting him. If it weren't for the fact that Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi always went to defend himself, Fang Yan's chest would have collapsed and he would have been beaten to death and knocked out. Bang! Fang Yan fell to the ground again. After struggling for a while, he climbed up from the pile of rocks with great difficulty. His head and face were covered in dust. Other than his blood-red eyes, which still shone with a strong and unyielding light, it was difficult to distinguish his facial features from the dust. Fang Yan straightened his body again and walked towards the man in the gray robe. His body was even more bent, and when he walked he looked like a cooked shrimp. His body swayed, but every step he took was unusually firm. His eyes were fixed on his target, the man in gray who had sent him flying again and again. He only had one target, the man in gray who had taken away his father's killer, Bai Xiu, and was about to take his life. He knew that the man in gray was very strong. He knew that the man in gray had made a name for himself decades before him. He knew that the man in gray was one of the few experts in the world. He knew that even the old drunkard Mo Qingdi might not be able to block him. So what? Was that the reason for his retreat and escape? Besides, Fang Yan knew very well that although he did not know the identity of this gray-robed man, the fact that he had interfered to protect Bai Xiu at this time proved that he was the more powerful mastermind that Phoenix had mentioned. He held a dominant position in this assassination plot, or rather, a dominant position. Bai Xiu was his mortal enemy, and this gray-robed man was similarly his mortal enemy. If he begged for mercy this time, how would he face them next time? If he retreated this time, when would he be able to avenge his father? Based on Fang Yan's understanding of Bai Xiu, if he managed to escape this time, he would definitely conceal his identity and even disfigure himself so that no one would be able to find him again. Fang Yan had no choice but to persist, and he had no choice but to be an idiot. Quang, quang, quang. Because every step he took was very firm, his footsteps seemed very heavy. With every step Fang Yan took, rocks would be crushed and grass would ooze juice out of the ground. Whoosh, the gray-robed man's body disappeared. When he reappeared, his palm was aimed at Fang Yan's chest. There were no complicated movements, no shadows of palms filling the sky. It was just a simple, seemingly ordinary palm. Of course, the palm was so fast that it almost stopped one's breath. Bang, just as the gray-robed man's palm was about to hit Fang Yan's chest, something strange happened. A fist appeared in front of his palm, and the fist arrived at lightning speed. It was the fist that Fang Yan had intercepted. Fang Yan had prepared countless times, and this time he finally grasped the trajectory of the gray-robed man's palm. Boom, the palm and the fist collided, and the strong energy carried out a fierce battle. Crack, crack, the air was burned and the space was torn apart. The palm and fist that collided could no longer be seen clearly. I blocked it, Fang Yan grinned. This was his ideal, his goal. He wanted to kill the gray-robed man with one punch, but of course he knew that was impossible. Therefore he only wanted to receive a palm strike from him. He wanted to fight head-on with his palm strike. Do you think you can block me like this? The gray-robed man's body became illusory again. Fang Yan knew that this was the natural reaction of the human body when his speed reached an extreme state. For example, in the American TV series The Flash, when the human body surpassed a certain law, there could be two real you. Could even run to the past and the future. Dream on. The gray-robed man's palm that collided with Fang Yan's fist suddenly increased its strength. Fang Yan also increased his strength at the same time. This was the use of the second drive. Normally, when a person punched, there would be a process of retracting and accumulating strength. But for these peerless experts, this process could be reduced or completely eliminated. They could keep using strength, second drive, third drive, or even the legendary fourth drive. Boom, the two men's chi collided once again. Fang Yan's chest tightened and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The gray-robed man's body trembled and a pained expression appeared on his face. From the outside, the gray-robed man's palm and Fang Yan's fist never separated at all. It looked like the two of them were constantly competing with each other's internal energy. But the gray-robed man and Fang Yan knew that they had already fought 3 times in an instant. Each time was extremely dangerous, and if they were not careful they would be smashed to pieces. Boom, the gray-robed man increased his strength again and Fang Yan followed suit. A battle of 3 forces. The Tai Chi heart in his body spun wildly, and the Tai Chi twin fish continuously transferred vitality and energy to Fang Yan's fist. If not for the formation of the Tai Chi twin fish, Fang Yan would have been completely exhausted, and he would have been trampled by the gray-robed man. Fang Yan was just about to exert his strength for the 4th time when an extremely sharp energy suddenly came from the gray-robed man's palm. Palm sword. Or rather, it was the palm chi sword. Using chi to condense into a sword, it could kill people without leaving a trace. Fang Yan only felt a sharp pain in his fist and then his body flew backward. Crack. This time he fell more miserably and heavily than the countless times before. When he wanted to use his elbow and knee to prop his body up, his arm went limp, and his upper body that had just lifted up fell to the ground again. Fang Yan lay on the hard and uneven ground, and looked up at the dark sky above his head. There was no moon or stars in the sky, only a huge black screen. It blotted out the air, the light, and the hope. Fang Yan felt that it was getting harder and harder to breathe, and he felt that his chest was getting more and more stifled. He had a strong urge. He wanted to tear the black screen above his head and he wanted to breathe in the fresh air outside. Fang Yan raised the fist that he had used to attack the gray-robed man into the air. His fist was burning with pain, and when he raised it up, it was trembling non-stop. Bright red blood flowed out of the wound. This fist was also ruined. I can't lower my head. Fang Yan gritted his teeth and said to himself, the crown will fall. Like a hedgehog, he rolled on the ground before using his legs to prop himself up. I can't bleed, Fang Yan once again told himself. Only fools can laugh. He tore off a piece of cloth from his body and tightly bandaged the wound on his hand that was caused by the sword energy. Then he looked at where the gray-robed man was standing and once again walked towards him. If you can't kill me, I'll kill you. This was the only thought in Fang Yan's mind. The gray-robed man's expression was extremely ugly. Fang Yan kept getting up and charging at him again and again. To the gray-robed man this was a provocation. He coldly stared at Fang Yan and said, "It seems that you're prepared to die?" "I'm not," Fang Yan smirked, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Death? I wouldn't be able to prepare for it even if I had 100 years. I have to say I admire your perseverance, but I've already lost my patience with you," the gray-robed man said. "Originally I didn't intend to kill anyone tonight, but I've changed my mind. Witnessing the birth of a miracle is a wonderful thing, but killing a miracle is also a memorable experience." The gray-robed man's voice became weaker and weaker. His body had already disappeared. Fang Yan was on guard waiting for him to attack again. What surprised him was that this time the gray-robed man didn't immediately attack, nor did he strike his chest. His body turned into a gentle breeze, circling around Fang Yan's body. Whoosh! As soon as his body appeared, Fang Yan threw a punch. Rip! Fang Yan's fist struck the man's black robe, causing the robe to let out the sound of cloth ripping. But Fang Yan knew that he had fallen into a trap. Golden cicada shedding. Fang Yan felt the back of his throat tighten, then he lost control of his body. The gray-robed man's body was so small and thin, but he easily lifted Fang Yan's body into the air. While holding Fang Yan's throat, the black-robed man looked at Fang Yan's reddened face and said, "You are a genius, but you are still too young." As he exerted more and more force, Fang Yan's consciousness became more and more hazy. He didn't break Fang Yan's neck right away. Instead he wanted to slowly kill Fang Yan and suffocate him to death. The martial fanatic panicked, ran towards the gray-robed man and struck his back with his palm. Crack, crack, crack. Cracking palm. As the gray-robed man swung his left hand, the cracking air from the cracking palm disappeared. "Do you know what you're doing?" The gray-robed man's gray eyes stared straight at the martial fanatic and asked in a low voice. "Spare his life. He's too young, he doesn't understand," the martial fanatic begged. "It's too late," the gray-robed man replied. "No one can have a second chance." Fang Yan. Phoenix wanted to get up from the ground, but she had lost so much blood that she couldn't support her body anymore. She didn't even have the strength to stand up. She could only angrily scream Fang Yan's name, unable to do anything to help Fang Yan. "Song Zai, why do you have to do this?" A clear and gentle voice came from above. Chapter 595. Song Transplanting Seedlings. The Tao addict was in charge of the world. This man in gray was Song Transplanting Seedlings, one of the 7 addicts of Wuxia. The monk and the Taoist priest descended from the sky and stood in front of the man in gray like a god. The monk looked at the dying Fang Yan in the hands of the man in gray and said, "Why bother with a child in a conflict between adults? Compared to him, how old are you? Transplanting seedlings, forgive and forget. Give me Fang Yan." The man in gray stared coldly at the monk and the Taoist priest in front of him and said coldly, "Bald donkey, you always come to ruin my plans. I can give you face for other things, but I can't give you face for this kid. I said he must die." Song Transplanting Seedlings, do you know what you are doing? When has our Taoism ever had an executioner who kills innocent people? Tianjizi said angrily. He had a good impression of Fang Yan and had always regarded Fang Yan as the future hope of Tai Chi. He had even repeatedly suggested that the Tai Chi diagram be handed over to Fang Yan for safekeeping. Now seeing Tao addict Song Zaniang trying to kill a young martial arts star despite his age and seniority, he was naturally furious and could not help but reprimand him. "Tianjizi, what right do you have to talk to me like this? Even if your shameless master stood in front of me, he would only respectfully call me eldest martial brother." Song Transplanting Seedlings looked at Tianjizi with disdain and said, "Besides, now you admit that I'm a member of the Dao sect? When you expelled me from the temple, did you ever think that one day you would need my help? Song Transplanting Seedlings, how dare you mention what happened in the past? You are so vicious that you will not be tolerated in the Taoist temple. Besides, if it were not for the sake of brotherhood and your sincere repentance, the temple master would have locked you up in the Monkey Mountain for the rest of your life. How could he allow you to deceive those fools and do so many evil things? Tianjizi seemed to be very familiar with the Tao addict song transplanting seedlings, and they had a close relationship. Therefore he was very dissatisfied with what he had done. Song transplanting's eyes were dark and fierce. He stared at Tianjizi and said, "It seems that you are here today to punish me? If it weren't for Feng Yu I wouldn't have bothered with you. But today you have to hand over Feng Yan to us. What if I don't hand over Feng Yan? What can you do to me?" "Then don't blame me for being impolite," Tianjizi said coldly as he held the horsetail whisk in his hand. "Let's put the past aside." The long-browed monk looked at Feng Yan in the hands of the Tao addict and said, "Transplant the seedlings and give the child to us. Today's matter had come to an end. What do you think? A baldy like you also wants to stand up for this kid." "To tell you the truth, he is the candidate that the old Daoist and I have set our eyes on," the long-eyebrowed monk said truthfully. "Protect Long too?" Song transplanting seedlings sneered and said, "The candidates are getting worse with each generation. Fortunately you weren't chosen back then." Heavens, Jizi mocked. "If you were chosen then each generation would truly be worse than the previous one, Tianjizi. Am I not speaking the truth?" Heavens, Jizi sneered. "It's human nature to say that the grapes are sour when you can't eat them. It has nothing to do with how many years you've lived. Ba." The long-eyebrowed monk put his palms together and said, "It's more important to save the child. Please don't argue. Transplant seedlings, you're a wise man. Today's situation has come to this point, and it doesn't matter who wins or loses. Give me the child and this matter will come to an end. How about that?" Song transplanting seedlings was hesitant. "If the old Daoist and I join hands to snatch the child, surely it won't be easy for transplant seedlings?" The white-browed monk looked at song transplanting seedlings and said, "Today is really eye-opening. Even a monk knows how to threaten. Ba." The long-eyebrowed monk lowered his head and chanted, I've sinned. "Bald donkey, you've sinned greatly," song transplanting seedlings said. "If you want Feng Yan then take him." As he spoke, song transplanting seedlings raised Feng Yan in his hand and threw him toward the long-eyebrowed monk. The long-eyebrowed monk reached out and caught Feng Yan in his arms. He touched his chest but there was no heartbeat. He checked his breath but there was no breath. "Feng Yan." The long-eyebrowed monk shouted Feng Yan's name. No one answered. "Feng Yan, wake up." The divine Jizi placed his palm on Feng Yan's chest and transferred his qi into Feng Yan's body. However, there was still no reaction from Feng Yan. It was as if Feng Yan was dead and there was no longer any perception of the outside world. "Feng Yan, how is Feng Yan?" Phoenix couldn't get up, but after hearing the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi's shouts, she immediately had a premonition that something bad had happened. Her voice was hoarse and weak and she desperately tried to get up from the big rock. But as soon as she stuck her head out, her body fell to the ground. She tried to get up again but accidentally fell under the rock. Song transplanting seedlings. The long-eyebrowed monk was furious and said, "How can you be so vicious?" Obviously, song transplanting seedlings did not want to agree to the long-eyebrowed monk's request, and he knew that he could not take Feng Yan away under the joint efforts of the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi, so he killed him in advance. The divine Jizi was even more furious. With a sweep of the horsetail whisk in his hand, a majestic qi came out of nowhere and smashed toward song transplanting seedlings like a wall of qi. The divine Jizi swept the horsetail whisk again, and the wall of qi was divided into countless thin lines. Each thin line became a sharp arrow, flying toward the Tao addict song transplanting seedlings. Song transplanting seedlings roared and waved his hands in the air. Where his hands passed, there were two arcs of solidified qi standing upright in the air. If one looked carefully, they would find that these were two fish. The two fish of the Tai Chi twin fish. The Tao addict song transplanting seedlings was originally born in Taoism, and his kung fu was naturally inseparable from the theory of yin and yang. Tai Chi song transplanting seedlings punched out, and the two fish spun wildly. They took the initiative to collide with the qi arrows that filled the sky. The sound of clashing was endless, and there was a faint sound of gold and iron colliding in the air. The long-eyebrowed monk held Feng Yan with one hand, recited the Buddhist mantra, and slapped the back of the martial addict song transplanting seedlings with the Buddha's golden light palm. When the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi fought with the Tao addict Song transplanting seedlings because of Fang Yan's death, Fang Yan, who was supposed to be dead, opened his eyes. During the 3 years of guarding his father's mausoleum, Fang Yan's brain was groggy and his heart was like dead ashes most of the time. He could not taste the food and he could not sleep well at night. Therefore, at that time he developed a habit of soaking his whole body in the bathtub, creating a state of suspended animation. At the beginning, Fang Yan could only hold on for a few minutes. Later, the practice time became longer and longer and Fang Yan could almost hold on for an hour. He did not need to breathe and his lungs did not need a constant supply of fresh oxygen. He used the heart of Tai Chi to carry out the overall circulation of his body, and the power of Tai Chi to maintain the operation of his body organs so that his body could be integrated with the warm water in the tub. The bubbles that occasionally emerged were the body waste discharged by the heart of Tai Chi, and he only needed the most primitive Qi before entering the tub to keep going. Song transplanting seedlings was insidious and cunning. When he was talking with the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi, he had secretly increased the strength of his hands. He really had the idea of strangling Fang Yan to death, and then throwing Fang Yan's body to the long-eyebrowed monk and the divine Jizi. Even if the monk and the Taoist were not satisfied, they would not risk their lives for an insignificant person. Even if they risked their lives, he could escape unscathed. When Fang Yan's consciousness started to blur, he started to enter a state of suspended animation. When Fang Yan was faking his death, he could actually be awakened by the outside world. When the long-eyebrowed monk called his name, he had already heard the other party's voice. When Tianjizi transferred his Tai Chi into his body, he could even feel the powerful warm current flowing all over his body, making him feel very comfortable. However, Fang Yan resisted the urge to respond. As Fang Yan had expected, because of the misunderstanding of Fang Yan's death, the divine Jizi took the initiative to attack the Tao addict, Song transplanting seedlings. The long-eyebrowed monk followed closely behind and slapped him. While the long-eyebrowed monk was focused on the enemy, Fang Yan's body flipped over, and with a light leap he escaped from the long-eyebrowed monk's arms. Then he sprinted towards the place where Bai Xiu was lying on the ground. Seeing that the thunder-shocking sword was under his feet, he kicked with the tip of his foot and the thunder-shocking sword jumped into the air. He picked up Bai Xiu's thunder-shocking sword, his body flying in the air, and the long sword fiercely stabbed at Bai Xiu's chest. Bai Xiu's eyes widened as he looked at all this, at the leaping Fang Yan. Wasn't he already dead? Why did he come back to life? Dad, watch from the sky, Fang Yan roared sternly. He was sent flying again and again, but he got up again and again. He was not afraid of the strong and he was not afraid of death. He just wanted to seek justice for his father who had died a tragic death. Everything he had done was for this purpose. If he could do it, he felt that everything he had done was meaningful. In life, who didn't do a few stupid things? Fang Yan's body flew upside down, and the long sword in his hand made a buzzing sound. That was caused by Fang Yan using too much force. He was afraid that he could not stab Bai Xiu to death, so he used all the strength in his body. Goodbye, Bai Xiu opened his mouth and laughed. It seemed to be a mockery of Fang Yan, but also an affirmation of Fang Yan's behavior. He was saying goodbye to Fang Yan. Crack! The long sword pierced through the flesh and into Bai Xiu's body. He died without regrets. Chapter 596. The mountain breeze was cool, but it couldn't cool people's hearts. Jiang Junling felt that his heart was very cold. He felt that this world was really too dark. He was determined to succeed in this trip to Huaqing. He came full of confidence. Although he never said it out loud, he did have the thought of avenging his shame in his heart. Other people also thought so. Otherwise, why would he chase after Fang Yan when he just returned to Huaqing after his 3 years of mourning? Fang Yan had used all sorts of strange moves, but Fang Yan managed to turn the tables time and time again. In the process of clashing with Fang Yan, Jiang Junling never gained any advantage. Instead, his face was beaten red and swollen by Fang Yan time and time again. Jiang Junling really liked the saying, turning the hand over the clouds and turning the hand over the rain, but he could only helplessly watch others put this saying on top of Fang Yan's head. Because Fang Yan couldn't win for a long time, Jiang Junling could only defend Huaqing, unable to escape. All kinds of gossip started in Yanjing City, and some important people in the family began to doubt his ability to control the overall situation. Some people objected, some people scolded, some people sat on the sidelines and watched the fire burn, and some people ridiculed. It was also because of the pressure from all sides that Jiang Junling designed such a sure-kill situation. He spent so much time and manpower, but the result was so unsatisfactory. Jiang Junling wanted to point to the sky and curse. Even if Fang Yan is your son, isn't your favoritism a little too much? In just one night you let him obtain the light of Tai Chi, you let him complete the Tai Chi Pisces, and the reinforcements you sent are stronger than the last. How do you want people to live? Why don't you just give him the blessing of Vajra and make him immortal? Do you have the ability to make him a god or an immortal? Jiang Junling felt that the world was dark and the heavens were unfair. That kid lived like he was cheating. Who would be willing to touch him? Ordinary people know the hearts of old friends, but old friends are fickle. Jiang Junling sighed softly. In the boundless universe there are all sorts of strange things. Today has really broadened my horizons. He had seen many people with exuberant destinies, but a person like Fang Yan who had such a strong destiny was truly rare in the world. If even this couldn't kill him, how heaven-defying would he become in the future? There was a pavilion behind him with a stone table and stone chairs. There was wine on the stone table. It was the best champagne they had carried up from the foot of the mountain. Jiang Junling was not used to drinking champagne. He felt that it was not as refreshing and fiery as white wine, nor was it as gorgeous and elegant as red wine. But he liked champagne to celebrate the good omens of victory. This bottle of wine was originally prepared to be used to celebrate the victory of the war, but now it seemed that there was no need for it. Jiang Junling looked at the champagne on the table and felt that it was a mockery of himself. Picking up the bottle of champagne, he was about to throw it far away at the foot of the mountain when someone behind him shouted, "Don't throw it, you can't throw it away. It would be a pity to throw such good wine away." Figures flashed, and a group of people quickly rushed into the pavilion. The leader was a middle-aged man in a black suit. He greeted Jiang Junling with a smile and said, "Second young master, if I'm not mistaken, this bottle of champagne is the 1998 Cook on Bong Black Diamond Champagne, right? A bottle costs thousands of dollars and there's no market for it. It's really not easy to drink it usually. My brothers and I have been climbing the mountain all night and now we're really a little thirsty. If you don't mind, can you reward us with this bottle of wine to moisten our throats?" While the man in the suit was speaking, the men in black that he had brought with him spread out and surrounded the General Ling in the middle. Jiang Junling seemed not to feel the abnormality of the others. He looked at the man in the suit in front of him and said, "Li Guoqiang, you came all the way from Yanjing City to this Sword Peak. Surely it's not to drink this champagne, right?" "Of course not," Li Guoqiang said with a smile. "However, if we can drink a sip of Pinot Noir champagne before we talk business, then this trip will be even more worthwhile." Jiang Junling smiled and shook his head. He handed over the champagne bottle in his hand and said, "I originally thought I wouldn't need it, so I wanted to throw it away. Now that you mention it, I also feel that it's a pity to throw it away. If you're interested, then drink it. Just take it as an early celebration for my big brother." "Thank you, second young master." Li Guoqiang took the champagne, shook it a few times skillfully and suddenly stabbed it into the sky. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and then the champagne in the bottle sprayed out. Li Guoqiang drank 2 mouthfuls of the bottle, then handed the bottle in his hand to a man in black beside him. He looked at Jiang Junling and said, "Good wine, it's really good wine. If it wasn't for second young master's generosity, it really wouldn't be easy for us to drink such good wine." Jiang Junling smiled as he watched the champagne bottle being passed around in the hands of the men in black. He said, "What's a bottle of champagne? If you like it, I'll get someone to send you a few boxes of better wine when we get back." Li Guoqiang waved his hand and said, "No, this can't be done. If the young masters of Yanjing knew that the eldest young master was going to send wine to me, Li Guoqiang, would I have the guts to walk out of my house? They would probably tear me apart." Who is the second young master? He's a god in everyone's heart. Who would dare to drink wine given by a god? A murderous intent flashed in Jiang Junling's eyes. He looked at Li Guoqiang with a smile and said, "Guoqiang, you're here to laugh at me, right? Second young master, how can you say that? How can I laugh at second young master? I'm here to cheer for second young master," Li Guoqiang said with a serious face. I also just heard that second young master is going to hold a champagne banquet tonight at Mount One Sword and invited many famous stars. Although I didn't receive an invitation, I still rushed over. I think second young master won't blame me for coming without an invitation, right? Li Guqiang looked at Mount One Sword and asked, second young master, what's the situation? Our contestants should have one, right? I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Guqiang. Zhang Junling said calmly, we lost. Lost? Lost. Zhang Junling answered with absolute certainty. Li Guqiang sighed deeply and said, it seems that I came late and couldn't help second young master much. The smile on Zhang Junling's face disappeared. He said, Guqiang, we're all old acquaintances. There's no need to hide anything. If you have something to say, just say it. That big brother of mine told you to come over and watch. He wouldn't just say a few sarcastic words and complete the mission, right? Li Guqiang laughed and clapped. He said, second young master is indeed wise. I knew that I can't hide anything from you. You also know that I, Li Guqiang, am timid and thin-skinned. Originally, there were some things that I couldn't say and some things that I was too embarrassed to do. But under second young master's encouragement, I felt that I should try my best. Zhang Junling looked at Li Guqiang with certainty. He asked, then tell me properly. Did General Xing ask you to cripple me or kill me? I hope it's the latter. That way it proves that my big brother is the same kind of person I know. Second young master, actually this matter really has nothing to do with eldest young master. You know eldest young master's character. He likes to go sightseeing, ride horses and shoot arrows. He's too lazy and doesn't want to worry about anything. It's just that us brothers couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to help eldest young master get something back. It has nothing to do with him. A mocking smile appeared on General Ling's face. Li Guqiang, you said that my big brother is lazy and likes to go sightseeing, ride horses and shoot arrows. When you said this, did you believe it? Do you think anyone in Yanjing City would believe it? An ambitious guy, in order to prove that he doesn't fight or snatch, that he doesn't have any desire for power, spouts nonsense and acts crazy all day long. If he's not reluctant to leave the flowers and ruin his reputation, then he's at a loss for what to do. Does he think that he can deceive everyone's eyes like this? Does he think everyone is an idiot? Childish. Really childish. If he's really a man, he might as well stand up and fight with me. That way he would be valued by more people. Unfortunately, he doesn't. He can only hide behind the crowd like a turtle, shooting arrows from time to time and spreading rumors. Don't you feel ashamed? Ha ha ha. Li Guqiang clapped his hands and laughed. He said, second young master's words are incisive and you scold me to your heart's content. I've also discussed this issue with eldest young master before. I also told him what you said. But eldest young master's answer made me feel enlightened. Do you know how eldest young master answered me? I'm really curious. Zhang Junling sneered. Eldest young master said that if everyone thinks that my acting is clumsy, then it proves that my acting is successful. Li Guqiang said, I'm not trying to get the acting emperor. Why would I need such superb acting skills? Zhang Junling's face sank and the sharpness in his eyes became even more intense. General Xing's words were deeply philosophical. If he jumped out to fight with him, he would have long regarded him as his biggest opponent and wholeheartedly stepped on him. If everyone thought that he really didn't have any desires, then with his sensitive and suspicious character he would naturally think that he was hiding something and had a big plan. He would even think of a way to kick him out of the game. The wonderful thing was that his clumsy acting skills were that he didn't want anything. But secretly he was constantly making small moves. This would make people underestimate and belittle him, thinking that his level was only SOSO. In this way, when he suddenly jumped out and brandished his bayonet, it was truly impossible to guard against. Like now. Zhang Junling nodded and said, brilliant. His words also convinced me. Now you can tell me what is it he wants? Li Guqiang's sharp eyes stared at Zhang Junling and said, I know that second young master is generous. He just gave us a bottle of champagne. Can I ask for something else from second young master? What is it? Lend me your life, how about it? Chapter 597. Anything could be borrowed but not one's life. Everyone only had one life. If someone else borrowed it, they would become a dead person. Of course, Jiang Junling knew very well that these people came to make him a dead person who couldn't be said to be motionless. A dead person wouldn't fight with people over anything. Many people like dead people. Li Guochang wanted to borrow Jiang Junling's life, naturally to kill Jiang Junling. Jiang Junling stared at Li Guochang with biting cold eyes, as if he was spying on the truth of his words. Li Guochang also stared back at Jiang Junling with the same cold eyes, without the slightest fear. He used his actions to prove the truth of his words. Jiang Junling laughed out loud and looked at Li Guochang, saying, "When I saw you appear, I knew Big Brother's intention. Before, I was worried that Big Brother would be too soft-hearted and wouldn't be able to achieve great things. Now that I see how cruel and unscrupulous you are and how vicious you are, I am completely relieved." "Don't blame the eldest young master," Li Guochang said with a dignified expression. "He is the eldest son of the general family. He is the eldest brother of the general family. In the end, because of the words one should have a son like Jiang Junling, he was suppressed for so many years and achieved nothing. All the glory gathered on your head and all the benefits were taken by you. When others introduced the eldest young master, they all said, 'This is Jiang Junling's eldest brother.' The eldest young master feels wronged and uncomfortable." "I understand." Jiang Junling nodded seriously and said, "I understand. Big Brother has had a hard time these years. He has such great ambition, but he doesn't have the treatment and platform to match it. He spends all day sightseeing and doing nothing. It's natural for him to feel wronged. I can understand him spreading rumors in Yanjing City, saying that I was beaten to a pulp by Fang Yan. I can understand him encouraging the enemies of the family to unite and force grandfather to abdicate, saying that I can't bear the heavy responsibility. If it were me, I would have done the same. I would have done it even more ruthlessly and resolutely than him. So, even if he wanted to kill me, I can understand. Who asked me to be the tiger in his way? If he didn't get rid of me, how could he have the chance to rise?" "Tiger in the way?" Li Guochang said with a face full of ridicule. "I'm afraid he's just a paper tiger." "No, it's a tiger in the way." Jiang Junling said, "When a tiger falls, he will be bullied by a dog. Li Guochang, when we were in Yanjing, did you dare to talk to me with this attitude? That time has changed. No man could be happy for 100 days and no flower could bloom for 100 days. This was the cycle of heaven and human nature. A loss is a loss. The disparity is too great. Can't you bear it now?" General Ling shrugged his shoulders indifferently and said, "His face doesn't look too good. Guochang, you guys stay by Big Brother's side. You must remind him. Tell Jun Xing to avoid clashing with him as much as possible. Once he makes a move, use the force of a thunderbolt and give him a fatal blow. This brat's zodiac is like a cockroach, he's tenacious." "Thank you for the reminder, second young master," Li Guochang said with a smile. He waved his hand and the unfinished bottle of champagne was brought over. Then he handed the champagne to Jiang Junling and said, "Second young master, I don't have much to give you. Have a sip? Take a sip and we'll be on our way." Jiang Junling didn't reach out to take the wine bottle. He looked at Li Guochang and said, "I've made a big fool of myself, so I can't go back to Yanjing City. Even if I went back, I would only be ridiculed by others for nothing. The arguments against me within the general family were getting louder and louder, and if I went back, I would only make things difficult for my grandfather. If I don't go back, Big Brother's ascension to the throne will become a matter of course." Jiang Junling looked at Li Guochang with a sincere expression and said, "Go back and tell Big Brother that we'll have to rely on him to support the family from now on. I will do my best to support him from behind the scenes. I'm afraid I can't." Li Guochang shook his head. "Although I'm very grateful for second young master's generosity, and I'm also grateful for second young master's various tasks, but second young master is still dead, right? As long as second young master is dead, then we can be completely at ease. I'm not afraid of second young master laughing at me. How much courage do I, Li Guochang, usually have to say such things to second young master? In this life, how many opportunities do I have to force second young master into such a difficult and dangerous situation? If you didn't want to kill Fang Yan tonight, if you didn't send out all the experts around you, even if we wanted to do something, I'm afraid it wouldn't be easy. Second young master, I still understand the principle of not missing an opportunity. So, second young master is still dead, right?" Jiang Junling sighed softly and said, "Guochang, I'm sincere. I really want to cooperate with Big Brother. He's in the light and I'm in the dark. If we brothers work together hand in hand, what can stop us in this world? I understand what you mean, but I can't die yet and I can't lend my life to you. You know, I just lost to Feng Yan and I lost so miserably that I lost everything. I haven't gotten my revenge, so how can I die so selfishly? I still need some time and I still have a lot of things to deal with. Besides, my life is beneficial to Big Brother. After he becomes the leader, he still has to face the threat of Feng Yan. We have the same enemy. I can help him do a lot of things. So we can't talk, Li Guoqiang said with a smile. Li Guoqiang took a step back and a middle-aged man with a crew cut rushed forward and punched Jiang Junling's head. Pa pa pa. The middle-aged man looked like he practiced internal martial arts. His punches were powerful and there were sounds of bones cracking when he punched. There were 3 keys to punching: fierce, accurate and fast. The middle-aged man was not only ferocious, but also accurate and fast. When he suddenly made a move, before you realized it, the fist was already about to break your head. Unfortunately, the exciting scene didn't appear. The middle-aged man's punch didn't break Jiang Junling's head. It was almost there. Almost there. The middle-aged man's fist reached Jiang Junling's face, but he couldn't push it forward. There was a hand on his neck, and it was that hand that made him lose all his strength, and he couldn't do anything more intense. It was Jiang Junling's hand. Jiang Junling's hand was strangling the middle-aged man's neck, and he looked at Li Guoqiang with a calm face and asked, "What do I have to do for you to let me live?" His left hand suddenly exerted force, and with a crack sound, the middle-aged man's body fell to the ground. "Is this what you want? You're courting death." Another black-clothed man rushed toward Jiang Junling. In the process of charging, he had already pulled out a sharp triangular dagger from his pocket. The man held the dagger upside down, jumped high, and stabbed at Jiang Junling's throat. Pa! His knife still couldn't stab through. Jiang Junling just raised his wrist, and the man's neck was strangled in his hand. Jiang Junling lifted the man's body in midair. The man's face was purple and he struggled desperately. However, his struggle was so powerless. It was impossible to escape Jiang Junling's iron hand. He looked at Li Guoqiang and asked, "Is this how you want it?" Crack. Another crisp sound rang out and the general's order once again crushed another man's neck. Li Guoqiang looked at Jiang Junling with a face full of shock and said, "Second young master, extraordinary skill?" No one knew that Jiang Junling knew Kung Fu. No one in the entire Yanjing city knew that Jiang Junling's skill was so powerful. It should be known that the people that Li Guoqiang brought were also very good fighters. The first person whose neck was broken by Jiang Junling was an outstanding figure of Xing Yi Quan's 9th generation, and the second man with a military knife was a special forces soldier who had completed many SS-level missions abroad. However, these people were a group of chickens and dogs in front of Jiang Junling. No matter which angle they attacked from, the result was the same. They couldn't even withstand a single blow. "Are you a little disappointed?" Jiang Junling patted the dust off his hand and looked at Li Guoqiang with a smile. Li Guoqiang waved his hand, and the surrounding black-clothed men rushed toward Jiang Junling together. "Stupid," Jiang Junling said. His body turned into a shadow and he passed through the crowd. Every time this sound was heard, a black-clothed man would fall to the ground. When Jiang Junling's body stopped again, none of the black-clothed men that Li Guoqiang brought could stand. All of them were lying on the ground in disorder and there was no pain on their faces. Jiang Junling looked at Li Guoqiang with some regret and said, "I don't like you, it's a pity." Unfortunately, he didn't finish his words, but Li Guoqiang knew that it was a pity that he couldn't kill him. "Someone has to go back and tell my cunning brother. Tell him that I'm sincerely willing to cooperate with him, don't you think so?" Jiang Junling looked at Li Guoqiang and asked. Li Guoqiang's mouth was full of bitterness and he nodded and said, "Yes. Then I'll have to trouble you." Jiang Junling patted Li Guoqiang's shoulder and said with a smile. Li Guoqiang's body softened and he almost fell to the ground. When Jiang Junling's hand touched his body, his first reaction was that Jiang Junling wanted to kill him. Jiang Junling looked back at Sword Peak again, and then his body flew down the mountain like a goshawk. Chapter 598. There was the pleasant chirping of birds and the refreshing fragrance of flowers. There was the warmth of the sun and there was the refreshing air. When Fang Yan opened his eyes, he saw another pair of eyes. You're awake. The divine Jizi greeted Fang Yan with a smile as he continued to work on the silver needles. The silver needles made a buzzing sound because of the divine Jizi's powerful qi. Fang Yan looked down and found that he was lying there naked, allowing a middle-aged uncle to do whatever he wanted to his body. Of course, he might not have had the time to do it yet. Where is this? Is Phoenix okay? Is Bai Xiu dead? Did you two kill that old man Song Zhanshan? Fang Yan wanted to get up, but found that he couldn't move his body at all. Every time he used force, his body felt like it was being torn into countless pieces. Fang Yan's head was dizzy and his vision darkened. He almost fainted again. His mouth didn't have any problems, so he asked a series of questions. Fang Yan's memory still stopped at the scene of him piercing Bai Xiu's chest and Xiu Mu rushing up to punch him. He couldn't remember what happened after that. The divine Jizi quickly inserted the silver needles into the acupoints on Fang Yan's chest. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Don't move, it hurts." Fang Yan looked at him sadly and said, "Why didn't you say so earlier? When you opened your eyes just now, even if I told you not to move, you might not have listened to me." The divine Jizi had a proud look on his face and said, "Now you probably don't want to move, right?" Fang Yan was very depressed. Why was it that he always met a bunch of bastards? Your body is seriously injured, your internal organs are seriously displaced, your meridians are blocked and your qi and blood are blocked. I'm currently massaging and using silver needles to help you recover. You haven't answered my question yet, Fang Yan said. You asked so many questions in one go, which one do you want to hear my answer the most? Where's the phoenix? Is she all right? Fang Yan looked expectantly at Tian Jizi and asked. Even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. It seems that in your heart the one you care about the most is still that girl. Tian Jizi teased. Because I probably already have the answers to the other questions. Fang Yan said, I believe that my sword strike has already killed Bai Xiu. If he's still not dead after that, then the heavens must be blind. As for that old man Song transplanting rice, he's definitely not dead. You can't possibly kill him. Why can't we kill him? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan with a displeased expression and said, Do you think the monk and I are no match for him? That's not it, Fang Yan said. In this vast world there are less than 10,000 people who can defeat you and the old monk at the same time. What do you mean less than 10,000? Not even a single one, Tianjizi said angrily. When it came to his own ability and dignity, even a Daoist with a pure heart and few desires couldn't remain calm. Then why did you let Song transplanting rice run away? Fang Yan asked in return. Tianjizi was speechless. Only then did he realize that he had jumped into the language trap set by Fang Yan. No one in this world can beat you, how could you let Song transplanting rice run away? Fang Yan grinned, his face was also burning with pain. He couldn't help but worry and said, I'm not disfigured, right? Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan and said, It's fine, it's not too badly ruined. How do you know Song transplanting rice is not dead? Tianjizi asked again. Because you and the old monk didn't do anything, Fang Yan said. Song transplanting rice is my enemy, it has nothing to do with you. You can protect me but you will never fight to the death for me. You don't have to feel ashamed, this is human nature. If Song transplanting rice was your opponent, I wouldn't risk my life to fight him. Only when it comes to your own life and death, can you unleash your infinite potential. You guessed correctly, Tianjizi nodded and said, Song transplanting rice is still alive, Changmei and I didn't make him stay. It doesn't matter, Fang Yan said proudly. Keep him, I'll kill him. Do you remember what happened last night? Tianjizi asked. I only remember that I stabbed Bai Xiu to death, Fang Yan said. I don't know what happened after that. Originally, we all thought you were dead, so the monk and I surrounded Song transplanting rice to avenge you. But we didn't expect you to jump out of the monk's arms and run to stab Bai Xiu. The scene at the time was so strange that everyone was dumbfounded and felt that the fight couldn't continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you, Fang Yan said embarrassedly. No matter what, Tianjizi and Changmei monk came for him, they were benevolent elders who stood on his side. He lied to others by faking his death, but he also lied to those who truly cared about him. Otherwise Tianjizi and Changmei monk wouldn't have gone to fight Song transplanting rice. It was also because he knew that faking his death would anger Tianjizi and Changmei monk that he had the chance to kill Bai Xiu. Fang Yan took advantage of the relationship between Tianjizi and Changmei monk. Tianjizi looked at Fang Yan with burning eyes and said, "At that time I clearly checked your chest and nose and found that you had lost all signs of life. You used a profound breathing technique?" "Yes," Fang Yan said. "Using the heart of Tai Chi to circulate inside the body, you can stop breathing and heartbeat for a short time. Everyone has different opportunities and fortunes. The gifts from heaven are also different," Tianjizi said. "After you stabbed Bai Xiu, you were sent flying with a punch. We picked you up from the ground and took you away. I don't know what happened after that. As for whether Bai Xiu is dead or alive, it's not something we care about." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I'm already very grateful. You didn't pick up the phoenix along the way." "She didn't want to come back with us," Tianjizi said. "Why?" After asking this question he already understood. "You already have an answer, right?" Tianjizi asked with a smile. "Yes." Fang Yan was full of bitterness. "We already have an answer. After what happened she probably doesn't want to see me anymore, right? From now on, there will be no more interactions in our world. The most familiar stranger?" The wild osmanthus tree suddenly bloomed, and the fragrance spread throughout the forest overnight. Rain fell on the empty mountain, and the ancient temple was illuminated by green lanterns. The rain fell in a pitter-patter, like the wisps of smoke drifting in the air inside the temple. You ignored the reason why she started and you don't know when she will end. As if there was no end to it. It couldn't be cut and it was messy. It was the sorrow of separation, a different feeling in the heart. In the middle of the temple hall was a statue of Guanyin. In front of it sat a woman wearing a blue robe. Long hair draped over her shoulders, a plain robe wrapped around her body. She didn't wear any makeup, but her beauty was natural. Her beauty was bold and unrestrained, tender and beautiful like a fiery rose, like the stars in the sky. But after wearing this monk's robe her beauty became reserved again. That fiery passion was hidden within, like a rose with thorns that could pierce through the wrapping paper at any time, revealing her stunning true face. This was a beautiful woman who didn't fit in with the atmosphere of this ancient temple. "Miss, you have to think this through. Once you shave your head and become a monk, you will become a disciple of Buddhism. Worship and serve Buddha, abide by the precepts. From now on you will no longer have anything to do with the mortal world." The woman was in a daze and didn't answer the nun's question. "What's your name?" "I'm Phoenix. And you?" "My name is Fang Yan. You can call me Fang Yan or you can call me Fang Huohua. Is my name easy to remember?" "Miss, are you ready?" The old nun with the razor asked again. "Do you know how to catch rabbits? Do you know how to catch sparrows? Do you dare to skate on the river? Have you ever eaten ambush from 10 sides? Never? Let's go, I'll take you too. Miss, if you haven't made up your mind." "Phoenix, I'm dying, help me take a look. My face is injured, help me apply medicine. My arm is injured, help me apply medicine. My butt was also kicked by that barbarian. Help me apply some ointment." "Miss," the old nun sighed softly and said, "since you have so many worries in your heart, then go home. And Xiao, you idiot. I saw you go out with Bai Xiu. That hypocrite Bai Xiu isn't worthy of you at all. If you want to find a boyfriend, you should at least find someone as handsome, talented and well-liked as me. That pretty boy. His face isn't even as white as mine. What's there to like about him? He's very cool. If what you mean by cool is putting on a dead face and not saying anything, then he's not even as cool as Uncle Wang in the village. Isn't Uncle Wang very cool when he's forging?" "Miss, let's go back. I've made up my mind." The plain-robed woman resolutely cut off the nostalgic past and answered firmly. "Miss, have you really made up your mind?" "Master, I'm sorry, just now, I've made up my mind." "Then I'll shave your hair and receive the precepts for you," the old nun with the scissors said in a deep voice. "Thank you, master." The woman put her hands together and closed her eyes, ready to accept her master's shave. From now on, the past of the mortal world, love and hate, gratitude and enmity will have nothing to do with me. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.